Achtung! Was für ein Move! Nächste Chance. Was für ein Pass zur Mitte! 1-0. Und der nächste Fight am Eis entbrennt. Hier entladen sich die Emotionen. Da haben wir doch noch was, um mit der Zunge zu schnalzen.
Folge 6 von Hockey O'Clock mit Martin Pfanner bringt euch nach Fehervar zu Langzeit-Liga-Goalie Michael Ouzas, zu Battered Home Eishockey League Referee Ladislav Smetana und zur Trainer-Legende sowie Puls24-Experte Greg Holst. Das und noch viel mehr. Jetzt bei Hockey O'Clock, of course, is dedicated to the Battered Home Ice Hockey League, and this is why we do have a player from an international team on for the first time. It's the legend that is goaltender Mike Ouzas. Mike, glad that you're on the show.
Hey, Martin, thanks for having me.
Mike, you're heading into your 10th year in the league. I mean, the previous 9, I guess, are nothing compared to the one that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique situation this year with everything that's going on. But you know, as players, we're just preparing kind of the same way, and we're ready for a September 25th start. And I think it'll be a year where we might have to adapt a little bit, but I think everybody's kind of in the same boat, and we'll just make do with however it goes.
On Friday, you would have had your first exhibition game outside of Hungary, but the game against Klagenfurt got cancelled due to Hungary's new border policy. What did you do instead of that exhibition game?
Yeah, we called up a couple lines from our farm team here in Fehervar, and we did like an inter squad game. It was still like we still had referees and did the three times 20 minutes, so it was like an actual game, but. Obviously, it would have been nice to play against some other teams and get more of that kind of vibe of real games. But yeah, like I said, we're going to make do, and if that's what we have to do a little bit along the way, I'm sure that's what we'll be doing.
How often do you get updated as regards the current COVID-19 situation, and how does it affect your team?
We've been kind of getting updated, I guess, week to week. More or less, when everybody finds out something, we find out at the same time. There's nothing really that we're getting on the inside source. It's pretty much week to week. The Hungary border just closed, like you said, on Tuesday, a couple of days ago. So that was new for everybody. They just announced it on last Sunday, and it closed 2 days later. So that's going to be a unique situation for us. I do believe the protocol for that is that we have to get tested a couple times before we go play in Austria, and then I'm not certain, but I've heard if we do come back from Austria, we have to have another quick test as well. So, like I said, I don't really know how it's gonna play out as we get along going through the season, but it'll be interesting to see.
I had your former head coach, Andy Järvenpää, on the podcast 2 weeks ago, and I asked him the same question that I'm going to ask you now. How big is your confidence that there's going to be a full season in 2020-2021?
I think the season will get played. I do believe that once it gets going and everyone kind of adapts a little bit and we kind of feel out how things are going to go. I think the season will get played. Maybe not totally according to the schedule. Maybe some games have to be shifted around or something along the way. But I'd say I'm pretty confident that games are going to get played. I know in Hungary, from a fan standpoint, that there's no restriction right now. So they were saying they might imply a restriction. I think it changes every week, or it might be like no restriction with masks or that kind of thing. So in Fehervar, I'm pretty hopeful that we're going to be able to get, a few thousand fans in our rink, and that the atmosphere will be similar to, or maybe even quite the same as regular. But it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, we're going to adapt and see kind of what happens as we go. Nobody knows. No one could have predicted what happened last year in the playoffs, so let's see how it goes. We're all hopeful that it's going to happen, and I mean, we're excited to get started. It's been a long camp so far for us. So
COVID's been in the headlines from basically February until today. How did you get through lockdown?
Yeah, so we actually, I'm sure as you know, like Fehervar, we didn't make playoffs last year. So we were done at the end of February. Once the playoffs started and the league got canceled, and it was basically after season, usually I go on a quick trip for a few days and kind of head home. Take some time off and then just start training again. This year was very different because everybody was kind of in a mad rush to get out of Europe to go back to North America because we weren't sure if the borders were going to close here. So I remember leaving on a Thursday, and there was a lot of guys in our team who had planned to stay for another few weeks, and they ended up everyone changed their flight for that weekend. And some guys that were trying to get out on like Monday, Tuesday said that if they wouldn't have left Monday or Tuesday, then they wouldn't have been able to fly out of Budapest until whenever. So some guys actually ended up staying until June or so, and then went back to Canada. But yeah, I went back to Canada. It was really strange because when I landed there, it was like nothing. It was like nothing was going on. So I remember being home and trying to be careful because I was just in Europe, like kind of the area that, obviously being in Hungary, Austria, Italy got hit. So I was kind of like being careful when I was home and I was just at my parents', I just stayed there for 6 weeks or so. And then, I was working out of my parents' house. The gyms, everything started closing though, slowly. And then all of a sudden, come April, everything was closed.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask at what point did it really hit you that this is some serious stuff? Because you were obviously mentioning the delay with which it hit North America and South America and other parts of the world.
Yeah, well, I felt it here before leaving because I remember I was thinking of traveling to Spain, and the next thing I heard was that a whole hotel was under quarantine because people in the hotel had it. And I was like, well, I can't travel to Spain anymore. I'm just going to fly home because I don't want to go somewhere and get stuck. And then, yeah, once I got back to Canada, then it was weird because we had a couple concerts and the Leafs were playing and the Raptors were playing, and kind of we had a little bit of a plan to go see my friends and go see a couple games, which we don't usually have the time to go see when we're over here. And yeah, all of a sudden then the games got canceled, the concerts got canceled, the venues started shutting down, the government just basically shut everything down. And then we were just in standby, like everybody. We're just on lockdown. But it took some time for everything to finally like actually fully close. Like everything was slowly closing, but it took probably I want to say until May for everything to like really just be like, okay, nothing's open. And then we had a slow rollback to open everything up. So even before I left, I came here August 11th. And I think August 1st in that time, Toronto was just opening gyms for the first time, just opening the ability to sit inside a restaurant for the first time. So it was like a kind of a strange summer, obviously. But
I mean, you're quite well known as one of the hardest workers in the league on a goaltending position. How did getting in shape for the season, or how was it different due to the coronavirus?
Yeah, it was definitely different. Kind of like everything, I guess you just have to adapt. So when I got home, my first priority was to find weights and to find, dumbbells that I can use in my house. And I already had a lot of the equipment. So I have in my house in Toronto, I have this like area. It's probably, 3 meters by 2 meters. We call it a den in Toronto. It's quite small. It's not quite a room, but it's like a glorified hallway, I guess you could say. And that was my setup for the summer. I did all my workouts there, and kind of outside. I spent some more time outside, did some workouts outside, found different ways with rollerblading to get some cardio in. It was definitely different. But yeah, working out at home, wasn't able to go to any gyms or anything, but I was able to still do my whole program in its entirety. So I don't feel like I missed anything aside from the, just the element of getting out of the house to go to the gym, which is always nice. But
your season ended fairly early without the playoffs. Took a little while to get back on the ices. Has this period of time in between the season, last season and this season been the longest time you've been without ice time, or were you able to sneak in somewhere and get in a couple of reps on the ice?
Yeah, it was definitely different. Just the biggest difference was just losing so early, like being out of season so early. So ending at the end of February was, the first time I've been done in February in a long time since I can remember. And I just took, I like taking time off the ice after season. I usually take off until the middle of June, more or less. So I did the same. I waited till about the first week of July this year to start skating. And the only reason I started was because I was starting to get a feeling that we might be coming back kind of that mid-August, early August. So the last week of June, actually, I started getting on the ice. I skated a couple times at a little mini rink, because those are the only things open, like private rinks in Toronto. So I skated a mini rink for a couple times, and then I skated with definitely a goalie who's played a long time in this league, Andy Chiodo. So he's my goalie coach at home too. We've been skating together for the last few summers, and it was great to get on with Andy a few times before leaving. And then that was it. Then I came to Fehervar, and we've been skating since I think it was August 17th. We've been skating. So.
How often did the club Hydro Fehervar AV19 check in with you? How often did they try to get your temperature literally and figure out if you could come over?
They were just kind of we were just waiting more or less for the season to announce when it was actually going to start. So we figured, and they said whenever they announce when the season's going to start, we're going to probably come over about 5 or 6 weeks before. So we had an idea that once, I think it was like middle of or start of July, and they said the season's definitely starting on September 25th. And then it was like, okay, I'm probably leaving in 1 month from now. Basically, that's kind of how it rolled out. And then they just said, okay, you're more or less on standby. We're not going to book your flight until a week before you're coming. And first week of August, they just said, all right, if you have some flight options, can you send them to us? What, coming out of Toronto, like what times work for you, that kind of thing. So it was very strange, because usually we usually have our flight in May, and then okay, more or less August 1st I'm leaving, so it's kind of a countdown, May, June, July leave. But this year was different. Usually I go to Australia for a couple of weeks too, so it was a very different summer for me, and for everybody, I'm sure.
How different was the travel experience with the virus going around?
Coming here, you mean? It was really
Yes.
weird because the airports were empty, which is very strange. And the flights were fine though. Like everything, I thought they did. Like I know some guys had an entire they had a row of 3, then they had the whole row in the middle was empty, and then the whole other side was empty too. So they had one person across the whole plane. So everyone was a bit different, but for the most part, a lot of guys said the travel was pretty much the same. Like not many people are on the flights, and the airports were just totally empty. Like it's weird seeing a huge airport like Toronto. Like you can just drive in, drop off, you don't wait in line, you just go right to the counter, and you're gone. So just kind of nice in a sense, yeah.
Just like in one of those movies that try to come up with the apocalypse. That's how you would picture it.
Yeah, like a Walking Dead type thing. Yeah, for sure. Like you just walk in there and it's just empty. It's a very weird feeling for sure.
I can imagine. I can definitely imagine. It's a well-known fact that you're DJing in your spare time. How did one of your main hobbies fare with considerably more time at your hands?
I made a lot of mixes, actually. Yeah, I had a lot of time. I just pretty much left the table set up, and more or less whenever I was bored, I just started making a mix. I did a couple live streams on Instagram there, which was different. It was fun. But yeah, I probably made about 15 mixes, I think, which they take time. Like they record in real time. So they record minute for minute. And then I just edit them a little bit. I just go through the sound, make sure the volumes are pretty good and in check. And if I make any like really big mistakes, then I go back and fix them. But for the most part, yeah, I made a lot of mixes. That's for sure.
How long does it take you to come up with a mix, like the arrangements, the tunes that you want to select? How much time goes into coming up with a mix?
Yeah, I would say I'm a bit of a music geek. Like I'm always looking for new music. A bit, yes. I think
understatement of the year.
Yeah, I think I have. Well, I know I have a lot of songs downloaded, so I have a lot of songs. But for the most part, I'm always just looking for new stuff and something like different kind of beats, and so yeah, a lot of. If I have a lot of songs, I just want to play them. I just go for it. If I want to make kind of a, let's say now it's been 2 months since I last released my last mix. So the next one, I would say I would download all new songs, listen to them a bit in my car, play them out for the guys in the room a little bit in the gym or something. See if anyone kind of likes them, just out of the corner of my eye, and then I just start piecing together a mix like that. I usually start with about 30 songs, and I'll record about anywhere between 15 to 20, more or less. 15 is usually about an hour or so.
Now, if people have never heard of Mike Ouzas, which is very unlikely, but if they're interested in music, what kind of music are they getting with you, and where can they listen to it? Shameless plug.
So I'll take it. They can listen at mixcloud.com/DJ Snooze. That's my DJ name. It's DJ SNOUZE. And yeah, that's probably the best spot to listen to, I would say.
What kind of music are you producing? What kind of mixes?
And I play like, I don't know, it's definitely house music. I kind of go back between like a funky house or a progressive house, or just even like a regular kind of house music, I guess you would say. Everyone calls it EDM now, which is new. I think the young kids call it that. But yeah, so I play that kind of thing, and I love adding vocals, or I love to have some kind of vocal in more or less every song for the most part. So a lot of throwback kind of rock mixes into house kind of stuff, or rap into house, and stuff like that. I like to have vocals all the time, so that I find even people that aren't into house music like that or appreciate that more, because they can relate, or they know the song at least. So then it just doesn't become one long beat, more or less, which I do like on my own, but maybe not for the podcast.
In preparations of this podcast, I of course sniffed around a little bit, asked a couple of people if they could provide me with a story or two, and a mutual friend sent me a voice message, and among other things, it's about DJing, about an invitation that he never really picked up on, and so much more. Let's listen into Phil Lucas.
The things that come to my head when you ask me about Mike Ouzas, aka DJ Snooze, I think everybody knows how much he loves to DJ and stand behind that pult and mix some beats. He always calls it. Actually, in fact, he called his own apartment the Beat Lab, which he always invited me to for a coffee. But me having kids and a family, it was always tough for me to make it. So. Looking back, I never really made it to the Beat Lab, which is funny. But there's a funny thing to the story, because I think me and Mike, we created our own little Beat Lab, which was mostly in the locker room when everybody was gone and we were still working on our workouts, or we're foam rolling, we're stretching. We had our little routines, which shows how much of a professional he really is. And then he was always happy when everybody was gone. He would put his beats on, he calls it, and I always got him to laugh when I broke out my dance moves. And everybody that knows me knows that I don't really dance very well, and I don't dance much, and I don't like to be seen dancing indefinitely. So, but I always got him to laugh, breaking down some terrible moves, and so we always had a good time there. But another thing it was actually Mike, probably in his first or second year that he played in Linz. We got together and he made me aware of a different way of physical training, and showed me his activation, and got me thinking in a whole different way, which led me years later, obviously, into being a strength and conditioning coach, and definitely woke up that interest in me about postural awareness, and basically prioritizing the health of an athlete first before we start really training with an athlete. So it was really interesting in his approach, and it was definitely a kickstart for me and into my career after hockey, and I appreciate that. So when I look back, I see DJ Snooze behind the pult mixing some beats, but I see a guy who really knows what he needs to do to prepare himself the best way possible for each practice and games. And that's why in my eyes, he classifies as a championship goalie, even if people maybe say that because he hasn't won a championship, he might not be one. But for me, the goalie is a huge part of the big puzzle, but he's not the only part of the big puzzle. And for me, the way Mike approaches the game every day, in my eyes, he's one of the best professionals I've ever played the game with. And therefore, in my eyes, whether he wins a championship or not, for me, he's a championship goalie. And that's my opinion.
High praise coming from your former captain. Obviously, in the final podcast, people can't see your reaction, and they can hear how often you had to chuckle, you had to laugh. I want to break this down in three parts. First of all, can we extend via this podcast another invitation to Phil Lucas to the Beat Lab?
Oh, of course. You know, a funny story with Phil. He's actually seen me DJ in the club in Linz a few times, in a couple clubs in Linz, and he's always the first guy on the dance floor. As bad as he is of a dancer, he's always out there dancing, and it's quite a sight to see, and I love it. So I'll mostly just play music to keep Phil dancing, and that's like really exciting. But yeah, it's incredible to hear that from a guy like that. Obviously, you know how great I think Phil is of a guy, and he was such a huge leader for that team and that organization. And you know, the things he brought every single day to the game, you know, are so big. We're so huge for that locker room, and it really is what unified us as a group. And you could see that when we played. And you know, we were really good because we had him at the front leading us every night. So that really helped us a lot.
High praise, obviously going both sides. But one thing he mentioned that he kind of got into his career after his career, meaning the strength and conditioning, by watching your workout routine. At what point did you for yourself decide this is what I want to do, this is what I have to do with my body?
Well, actually, that's kind of a lengthy question. It started for me. I've always been into training since I was probably like 16, 17. So I've always been into that. I went to university and studied kinesiology about training, and then did some certifications after that. But what really was eye-opening for me was after my university. After I graduated, I was lucky enough. It's funny how things kind of fall into place, which you would never know would happen, just kind of happen. And I was lucky enough. I signed an AHL contract with Toronto, and in the summertime, the Leafs needed a local guy if they wanted to come skate with the team. So I was under AHL contract, and they called and said, "Hey, do you want to come, skate with their guys in the summer?" Which obviously it's an automatic yes, for sure. So when I was going there, I met a strength coach named Matt Nickel, and Matty Nickel. I don't know if you know. I'm sure you've heard of BioSteel. Matty Nickel created BioSteel. But actually he's an incredible person and strength coach, and BioSteel, you can read about the story on that and why he developed that as well. But so Matty said to me one day, he said, "Mike, you're a hardworking guy, but if you don't," and he said it in the nicest way anybody could possibly say that. He said, if you don't change the way you train now, you might run into issues as you get older. And that was really eye-opening for me, because he said that to me after we had already done some testing of and I don't mean like kind of old school testing that, we still kind of do here a little bit or a lot. It's not like squat as much as you can and bench press as much as you can. His testing wasn't like that at all. It was like, okay, can you stand on one leg and reach down and touch this cone? Now do it on the other leg. And one leg would be good and the other leg would be totally out of whack. Can you, do a bird dog and touch your elbow to your knee? And one side would be really good and the other side would be out of whack. So I would be doing all this training, but really just doing it. And when I finally met Matty, it was like, okay, well, if you continue to add load or add weight to the movements that you're doing and you keep doing them with improper form, there's a chance that one day you could hurt something. And so I kept going in to skate, and I would get there super early because traffic is crazy. And I was lucky enough that he just took the time with me every day and just we just did we started very basic. And back then he was talking about things, I don't know if you know or are familiar, but glute activation, core activation. And this stuff is actually really popular now. Everyone's talking glutes. But this was back in 2008. So we're talking 12 years ago. And so we created a routine for me, a warm up. And Andy Chiodo actually brought me to see his Pilates lady, Sally. And Sally is still someone I go see now every single week in the summertime. And this year we did all online. And Sally is all about movement patterning. So sorry, it's a long answer.
No worries. I'm sure lots of listeners are very interested in your routine and how that all came about.
So that's how I literally went back to the drawing board and started writing my own programs.
So basically you tore everything down that you were used to up to this point, and then you build it up from scratch. Everything.
Because I was going to a pretty well-known at the time, strength and conditioning facility and training with a group and whatever. I was doing all that. But for me, it wasn't necessarily what I needed to improve. So I just broke it all down from scratch, started writing my own programs, and started seeing way better results in how I felt, how I was moving. And then I got super lucky. A year later, I was no longer under contract. Actually, I just played my first season in Zagreb. And when I went back in the summer, I asked Matty if he needed a guy to kind of intern for the summer. And so I was lucky enough, Matty brought me in, and I worked for him for 2 summers in Toronto and helped him train his guys. And he really the amount of things that I learned from him every day was amazing. And, we still talk to this day, and I still get to see him in the summers when everything's normal. And, so I worked for him for a couple summers. I ended up, this is a different part of the story, I ended up meeting a girl from Ottawa, moved to Ottawa, and I wasn't able to continue that. But it was really cool. And essentially, I guess on the simpler point, it's this, is that as a goalie, we do the same thing a million times, butterfly. But the other factors is like, okay, you hold a stick in your right hand, so your blocker's like this and your glove's like this for 9 months of the year, every day. So then it's like, for me, this is hard. And obviously we're on volume and we're on video and people can't see, but if I flip my hands, this is weird for me. So it's like, how do you find a way? My training, even in season, is all about like fixing the imbalances that I create on the ice every day.
Does it mean making movements more kind of natural or come more natural to you?
Yeah, exactly. So I can move more like a human and less like a goalie. And obviously goalie specific drills are important in a certain sense, but if I can just move properly, if both of my legs are balanced, like I can, reach down and touch that cone with both legs properly, and I'm not twisting on one side, how much is that going to help me on the ice that when I slide back and forth, my body's going to stay square to the puck? Whereas one side is easier to move than the other. So it's a lot of that kind of stuff. And just patterning the body, because the amount of stress that it takes to perform at a high level is big on the body, doing it every night. So if you train the right way, you significantly decrease your chance of injury. And not only that, if you do get injured, your chance to recover is much higher as well, because your body remembers how to reconnect the dots.
At some future point of this podcast, we're going to do a special episode on goalie workouts and all the things that you deducted from that.
Sorry, that's a long
from that meeting. No, it's totally fine. There's just a third thing I wanted to touch base on that Phil mentioned. He mentioned the fact, obviously, that the championship has eluded you so far, and of course, if that happens at an advanced stage of your career, people keep starting this narrative of you being depicted as a player without a championship. Maybe he's not championship winning material. Have you noticed people saying that?
Yeah, I mean, you always kind of feel that, especially playing on a team like Linz. And I was there 6 years. There was probably 2 of those years where I thought we were good enough to win. We lost to Salzburg, 3 times in my 6 years there, which sucked. Obviously I've lost them enough times in playoffs. That sucks. But I'd say the year we lost to Zanoimo was a big one for us. I would think that we were definitely the better team. It's funny how, it sucks. It's hard to say, we lost Phil that season. And that was a huge loss for us on many elements. And sometimes those pieces have to fall together to happen. But yeah, I would say that for me, if I had one quote unquote regret on my career, was not finding a way to win that series for our team. That was probably the one where you're just, that's beyond my abilities at the moment. That's the one where that's my watch there yelling at me. That would be the one that, you just kind of say that one sucked, where we lost in the semifinals, and it was like we were probably good enough to get to the finals, and then you never know from there. Basically, we would have played Salzburg again, but you never know kind of what could happen in a final series. So, yeah, and that would be the thing. And if, unfortunately, if I'm taglined as that, it sucks. You don't want to have that on your name. But in this league, I've been in the league now going into 10th year. It'd be nice to have one. That's for sure.
I do remember that Linz team, that it was indeed loaded, and I think you lost Phil 3 games into the playoffs. Yeah. So there's that, and that's what he probably said. A lot of pieces have to fall into place. So would you say all those pieces in your career have never fallen into place in 1 year?
Well, I've won championships in university. We won a national title. We won the league title the year after as well. Lost the nationals in the finals. So Yeah, in pro hockey though, definitely I would say that would be, all the pieces have to fall into place so well. And you look at the teams that have won everything in any league, you know, they stay healthy, they click at the right time, they find ways to get things done. And it's an interesting dynamic to win a championship. It's never easy. And yeah, I would just, unfortunately, it hasn't happened to date. And obviously that one time in Linz was probably the one that like stings the most for me, for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned getting healthy, clicking at the right time. I think exhibit 5,731, for that matter, would be the St. Louis Blues of last year.
Of course.
At what point do you start thinking about legacy and what you're gonna leave behind in terms of career and stats and things you did on the ice? I mean, you're a very considerate person. I'm sure it has crossed your mind once or twice, or has it eluded your mind so far?
Well, you can't say it.
And of course, that's a setup question.
Yeah, I just turned 35 last Sunday. So, you know, I'm not. When I came in the league, I was 25, literally going in my 10th year. I was just turned 26. So, yeah, you always start thinking, you know, what's going to be for life after hockey for me at some point. That being said, I feel great on a playing standpoint. I feel, you know, my body feels good. I still feel like I can still play in this game and hopefully have success in this game. I do still feel that I can bring a high level. And yeah, I haven't really looked back and to see what's been done, because in one sense, I don't really care yet, I guess you could say. I'm so focused on how can I get better and how can I improve my game and how can I bring something to the table again this year. And, you know, where are we at as a team this year? And I do think we have a good team this year. And how can we find ways to win in a city that has never, you know, they haven't even won we've won 2 playoff games in 12 years. So how can I find a way to contribute to this team and, you know, get them out of the first round, get them through a season and not be in the bottom where, you know, in the 12 years, they've only made the top 6 once. And last year, not making the top 6 was like the second time since it's been in the league, which is a weird feeling. And the time before that was the year before in Linz.
But
so
still,
it's...
Sorry, go on.
No, that's the answer. It's like, at some point, you know, it'll be cool to look back and be like, wow, that was 10 years of my life spent in Europe and the Austrian League, and hopefully maybe more than 10, but we'll see. But at the same time, it's like, you know, there's still so much to achieve, and you know, missing playoffs leaves a pretty sour taste in your mouth in an 11-team league, that's for sure.
Last question. I already said it was kind of a setup question to set up this one, because you are in rare company. You're one of 2 goalies with more than 400 games played in the league. You're one of 2 goalies with more than 200 wins, and you're one of 2 goalies with more than 25 shutouts. I think it stands at 28 at the moment. Is there a number that you especially care about that stands out for you, that you're especially proud of?
I mean, not really. I would say just I've been in the league for so long. You know, JP and I have been in the league both since the same time. We're both going in our 10th year, so. We're definitely the 2 goalies that have been in the league the longest, I would say. I can't think of any goalies that have been in this league for 10 years straight.
Gert Prohaska,
yeah.
Hard to be.
Okay.
And you already caught him in all the metrics that I mentioned.
Yeah. But I would say, I mean, if there is a number, I would say that, you know, for both JP and I, is we've been lucky enough to find ways to stay healthy and play a lot of games in those seasons. And that I think is the biggest thing. Like I contribute to my team when I'm healthy. That's the key. And finding ways to be able to play night in, night out, and continue to do so, I think is the biggest thing for sure.
Goal number one, obviously bring a championship to Hungary, or maybe a playoff series win first. So increasing your goal step by step. Goal number two, maybe eventually catching JP.
Yeah, well, I mean, he'll be a tough guy to catch now. He just had, a season that any goalie would dream about. Playing in Salzburg for this coming season, I'm sure, they're going to be good. They're always good. I think that, as long as we keep playing side by side, I don't know if his numbers will ever be able to be touched, to be honest. I think that, maybe if I played a couple years after him, maybe I'll have a chance. But yeah, it's incredible. It's been cool. I know JP is an awesome guy. He works extremely hard. There's so many elements in his game that I think are incredible. And he's just a great person, and he's been at an incredibly high level for so long, and it's awesome to see and watch. We still talk, and we see each other and play against each other. Last summer he came down and traded in Toronto as well, and yeah, it was cool to see and to watch him work on his craft as well. And it's, at the end of the day, we're just trying to do our best job and keep going as long as we can. It's a fun sport to play, and it's a pretty great life to live to doing it.
When two of the greatest that the league has ever seen get together, Jean-Philippe Lamoureux and Michael Ouzas, is it goalie talk, goaltending talk all the way, or what are you guys talking about?
Yeah, we skated with Andy with Chiodo in Toronto, and yeah, we just kind of we were just going through stuff, going through drills, bouncing ideas a little bit back and forth, and just. If you ever watch a goalie practice, it's not like it's not as crazy rocket science as sometimes you see. Sometimes you're just trying to work on one thing or two things. And for me, and I'd say for him as well, probably at this age, is for both of us, is like, it's hard to get, let's say, 10% better. And Andy would talk about this. How can we add 1% to your game or 2% to your game? How can we fine-tune little details to make that extra save or prevent an extra goal or whatever it is? So that's what we're working on, and just refining techniques. And we're pretty technical guys. How do you get better at this and that and that? So it's a lot of practice, but a lot of it is very boring, to be honest. If you ever watch goalies, like, we just basically do the same stuff over and over again. But it's part of the game, and then you might get an exciting save or two, but sometimes my favorite saves are the ones that hit me right in the chest because I did everything right before that. So,
although you've been known for your highlight reel saves, I reckon you're taking a highlight reel save here and there as well.
Yeah, you'll take one, of course, but usually my best save, or those highlight reel ones, are the ones where maybe you're out of position a little bit, or the team makes a good play in front of you, and you're just in kind of desperation and just kind of do whatever you can to make a save. You're just trying to stop that little puck. So
you and JP, you're probably at the forefront of this development. You mentioned the workouts, the drills, the coaching clinics. How has playing the goalie position changed over the years you've been around?
I would say probably strictly because of our age. I remember my first year in the OHL, which is the top junior league in Canada. One of those three leagues there. Is that my first year they were still teaching like pad stacks and skate saves, and roll around and get up and make a save, and kick pucks with your steel of your skate. I was still being taught that at 17 years old. And then by the end of my career, at probably in the OHL, I'm saying at the end of my, when I was 19, 20, like all the young kids coming in were all butterfly goalies, let's say. And now there's no such thing as, well, in my opinion, there's no such thing as like a stand-up goalie and a butterfly goalie. You're just like a goalie now. There's quote unquote one way to play now, pretty much. Like if a guy shoots on the ice, you're going to go down with your pads down and you're going to make a butterfly save. Like it's not like a guy's standing up on his feet anymore and kicking pucks with. So that evolution, we're both old enough to have seen that. Because the guys that were a couple years older than me were still very old school, and now you never see that stuff anymore. Very, very seldom. This year you saw a couple pad stacks in the NHL, but overall you're not seeing that too often. I would say that the biggest thing that's changed in the last few years is guys are just getting better at tracking pucks and staying over top of pucks, and I would say because of that, there's not as much diving and scrambling anymore. You're seeing guys just kind of stay on their knees and go about and shuffle around on their knees, and they're maintaining position better. So I think as things evolve in that sense, skating's a big part of the game. As things keep evolving, it'll be interesting to see how guys find ways to get better. But I still believe it comes down to like the guys who can stick to that and then find ways to compete out of the box a little bit and come up with saves. I think that's still, you still see it in the NHL every night. Big scoring games, like sometimes that one big save might be your 6-5 win or 5-4 win in a higher scoring game, or 2-1 win, whatever it is.
I mean, that would have been obviously a follow-up question. Is there a next step in the evolution of goalie play? Is there something that you see that's being taught at lower levels, at juniors, where you think, okay, this might be the next big thing in goalie play?
Not really. I do think a lot of stuff is like what's old is new again. Now everyone's kind of talking. So
it's coming full circle.
It just keeps coming full circle. 15 years ago, everyone was like, okay, watch the puck and beat plays on your feet. And then now everyone's talking again about like beating plays on your feet and how important it is. But it's not really new. It's just kind of like coming back. And I do think there are a lot of, kind of buzzwords and stuff like that are just fancy ways of kind of saying the stuff that, we used to kind of do a little old school style. But overall, I think the goalies now, like, the level of goaltending is so high. These guys are so good at all levels. And I watch kids do stuff now that I'm doing. And, when I was a kid, I could never even dream. Like, I didn't even have pads that could do that. Like, the skates now. I think the biggest advancement for goalies will be the gear and the technology and the gear. And just like, for example, like I just got these new pads now that sit differently on the skate to help you be able to push easier and move easier. And so that kind of technology, I think, sticks now are like weightless. So now, all of a sudden your blocker hand is like, my stick this year compared to probably 3 years ago weighs like half. So, from that perspective, which I mean, I'm not using a special stick. It's just a one-piece goalie stick. 3 years ago, they were, still like, I don't know what they were made of, whatever, handmade out of Finland. And now they're all just one piece. They're like the players, same kind of evolution the players went through between, wooden sticks to two-piece to one-piece. Now, I don't know any goalies using wood sticks anymore, really, or carbon fiber or whatever they're called. So
we've already gotten to the 50-minute mark of this conversation without.
Sorry, I talk a lot.
No, it's all good. Without even talking about your current club situation. You've been on the ice with Hydro Fehervar AV19 for quite some time. What's the vibe around the team?
Yeah, so we've been practicing now. We're coming in about a month, about 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks. We definitely look improved from last year. I do feel that we've been able to maybe add some elements that we were maybe missing last year, I guess you could say. That being said, I also feel like all the teams have found ways to add new elements. You always feel like that every year. It's from a standpoint, like it's strange because we haven't played anybody. So we don't really know. You can practice with your own team as much as you want and think you're playing well or not playing well. It doesn't matter. But until you actually start playing other teams, you never really know where you stack up, where you stand. So I do find, practicing for that amount of time starts to get like, you're just kind of doing the same drills over and over again. So I think we're missing that element of getting some games in. But I know a lot of teams are in the same boat. I just saw yesterday a couple teams played exhibition. But we won't have that. And that's just due to the times, but we have to adapt. Come September 25th, we got to find a way to be ready. We'll be going into Graz, which is always a tough place to play in. They're going to be a good team. And, we better find a way to be ready in whatever it is 3 weeks from now.
Granted that you didn't have that competitive aspect yet, but from a pure talent standpoint, compare this team at this point of the time of last year and this year's team. In what aspects and regards, in your opinion, have you gotten better?
It's tough. It's still so tough to say. It's kind of the same answer in a sense. I would say a big thing for us, we got back Janos Harry. We have Bartalis, who's a great player, which you'll see. And, all our core Hungarian guys are just a year older. So, as everyone gets a year older, they should get a year better. And I think we have a lot of guys, hungry to step up into more of a bigger role. We have some great leadership. We have Sarzi and Caruso, been around for a long time. We added Patan, who's a great player. We added Geiger, who'll be big on defense. Campbell was one of the best defensemen in the league last year. Hargrove has a big shot. We have a lot of good elements. It's just, for us, that being said, we do have a roster of 20 players. So, for us, health is going to be massive because unfortunately, if you lose one guy, the whole dynamic will change for us. But that being said, I think for everybody, the same kind of thing, every team. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out when we start playing games. I would say the toughest thing is that, when you do play games, you're able to find ways to adjust and adapt. And when you're only practicing, maybe you're not getting the full on, I don't know, like you would talk about like forechecking and D-zone coverage and systematic play. So we're missing the elements of like getting other teams to come against us so we can find ways to make our team better in that sense. And as a goalie too, we're doing goalie practice and stuff, but you do miss the element of games, reading plays, seeing the puck, seeing, you have traffic coming at different ways. Sight lines and things like that are always different. Guys shoot under pressure. Guys, try to make a last second play, shots with tips and stuff. So that stuff as a goalie, we're craving as well. That skate we did today helped for sure, but we need more of it for sure as you want to keep improving.
Now, last year, or actually this year in January, Antti Kahula took over from Hannu Järvenpää. I've got a two-part question because 2 weeks ago on this podcast, Hannu Järvenpää told us and the world that his wife was seriously ill with cancer. Was there a point where he let you know as a team, or where you knew that kind of something had to be up?
Yeah, he unfortunately, it's so sad. Hannu told us probably in October. So we knew as a team, and we tried to play for him, and it's so tough, and you want to be there for him. He's an awesome person. He cares so much about the guys and the team, and we wanted to be there for him like every day. And it's so unfortunate, and but we just kept trying to play, and obviously we weren't finding ways to win games, and that was they made a decision to go with we call him Oopie, and he took over, and I think it was kind of planned that he was going to come here to be the guy this year anyway. So I think they kind of just wanted to get him started right away.
So one guy from Finland takes over from the other guy from Finland. Is it same but different with Antti Kohula? How would you describe him?
I would say it's exactly the same, to be honest. We haven't really changed much. We haven't changed anything, actually. So we're doing the same kind of stuff. He had a big say in what we did last year as well. I would say from a sense, Hanu was more of a motivational guy. And Upi was more of our kind of X's and O's guy, I would say. At least that's how the dynamic was last year here. I don't know how it was before, but so yeah, it was very similar. Everything we're doing is pretty much the same this year. And yeah, we have a new Finnish goalie coach who's been awesome. It's been really cool. He's very Canadianized for a Finnish guy as far as his style and what he brings to the table is really cool. So it's been interesting to work with him. And, anytime you work with somebody new, you want to keep your mind open to try to learn. And I'm trying to grab new info. Maybe he sees something new or different that's going to help me. And, I'm trying to be pretty open and receptive to that as well. So.
Talking about Arttu Lipsanen, who's actually younger than you are.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Is that a problem as regards to the pecking order?
No, not at all.
Just kidding.
Not at all. We work really well together. We have a young guy. Well, not so young anymore, but our young guy Kornacker is really good. He's an up and coming kid, and he needs some work, and Artu's been really good in doing that with him in the gym and stuff like that. So it's helping him kind of what we worked on and started last year with Conky it was the training aspect and things like that. And now Artu's really taken that to another level with him, which is awesome to see. And, you asked me about legacy, to be honest, I would hope that probably the biggest thing that I would love to leave when I'm done playing with and I hope that, for the young guys in Linz that I would have played with and even the guys here is that, I want them to hopefully learn something from me. If I can teach them, I'd love to teach them and help them learn. And, I hope to bring a culture where we're hard workers and these kids keep it going long after I'm done here. That would be, if you talk about legacy, that would be cool for me, for those kids to be like, you know what, I learned how to be a pro from this guy, and I hope they can do it for a lot longer than I have. So that would be cool.
Now, Fehervar's or Hydro Fehervar AV19 is a club that doesn't necessarily get all too much exposure in German-speaking countries. So you're one of the well-known faces due to your time in Linz. You mentioned a couple of other imports that played in Bolzano and other places. Antti Kohula still is relatively new to a lot of people. If you had to describe him as he's one of the main faces as a head coach, if you had to describe his personality a little bit, what kind of coach is he? What kind of human being is he?
Yeah, he's a good guy for the guys, and he loves working out. He's all about working out, training and stuff like that. And he's not really like a yelling type of coach, but he has his systems and he has a way that we want to play, and he sticks to that. And yeah, he does a good job for us, and it'll be interesting to see how we go along, and hopefully we can get some better results than we did last year when he started out there. So
Fehervar is the third different destination that we're able to play in the old Erste Bank Ice Hockey League, now the Battered Home Ice Hockey League. How, or what's it, maybe compared to Linz and Zagreb, what's the most unique thing about Fehervar that people might not know?
Well, yeah, actually, yeah, it's different because Zagreb had a cool feel because Zagreb is a huge city, 2 million people, tons of, now it's crazy with the tourism and stuff. And in Zagreb, you know, we used to have 7,000 fans a game. People don't remember that from kind of how they exited, but it was pretty awesome to play in Zagreb. I remember we had a couple 15,000 people games there at the big handball rink. I don't know if you remember that, but Zagreb was
Arena
really
Ice
cool.
Fever, it was called.
Arena Ice Fever, that was it.
And if I remember correctly, you smashed one of your sticks in one of those games because you got so mad.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, those were old days. I try not to do that anymore. It costs too much money.
You have to pay that yourself if you smash the stick?
If you smash it, yeah, you have to put some money into the casas for the players to go out with. So yeah, try not to do that anymore. Linz was different. I was in Linz for 6 years, which, you know, for any player, that's like home. I still consider it like home. I go back there and visit. And so it was different being in Linz for so long because then you know all the people and the restaurants, bars, cafes, like anywhere you go in the city, I pretty much go to the same places all the time. What's unique about Fehervar that a lot of people don't know is the city is actually a lot bigger than it seems. There's 140,000 people here, which is not that small. It's pretty good size in Austria standards for sure. It looks small, or it looks, let's say, dark and dingy because when you come to the rink, you're on the highway, then you make 2 turns, and then you're like at the rink. So you don't really see anything from the city. The downtown is a beautiful little street. It's a typical European walking street. You've been in Linz, you know, there's the Altstadt in Linz. It looks identical to the Altstadt of Linz, really. And, you know, the Hungarian people are so friendly. This is one thing that I think is so unique to Hungary is that anytime someone walks into a cafe, like they say sziasztok, which in Hungarian it's like hello all, or sorry, yeah, it means like hello everybody. So they just walk in, open the door and say sziasztok to like, and then everyone in the place is like, see ya, like they say hi back, which I've never seen this before. And I'm Canadian. Like usually they say Canadians are like super polite. And I've never seen this in Canada ever, where like someone walks into a place and says hello to basically 20 strangers and all 20 strangers will say hi back. Same thing, like driving the car, like everyone will let you in, they wave, like thank you. Like they're extremely polite. But I would say that's probably the biggest thing in this culture is everybody says hello to everybody. It's a very everyone respects everybody. It's very different because, you know, the average wage in Hungary versus Austria, I'm sure is quite different. But from a person perspective, you know, everybody's so friendly. Everyone's always saying hi to each other. It's very cool. Another unique thing about Fehervar that people probably don't know is that, you know, we're in between Budapest, which is an incredible city, and Lake Balaton, which is actually an awesome lake. And it's very similar to, let's say, like Attersee or something in Austria, where you could go there, spend the day, you could rent a boat for like, you know, you could put 4 people on a boat, I think, for like 40 euros or something, 50 euros, like super cheap. They have cafes, restaurants, nightclubs, bars, all that stuff all along the water, all down the strip. They do an awesome festival. I know you like your drum and bass. They do Balaton Sound, which if you've never seen that, YouTube that is really cool. So that aspect is going on there. And then Budapest is like an undercover gem. It's something, I wouldn't say it's so undercover for Europeans, but you know, any of my Canadian friends would say it's probably number 20 on their list of things to see in Europe, right? Like after
and it
Croatia, it shouldn't be, but everyone wants to see Italy, Spain, Croatia, Greece, France, like on and on and on. Budapest is so far down the list, but it's such an awesome place. We're about a 40-minute train ride from here to there. So I go often. It's a €2 train, and you're right downtown, and spend a lot of time there. And I have some good cafes and restaurants and stuff. Maybe I can DJ there one day. We'll see. It'll be cool.
There are definitely worse places to end up at, but the one thing about Fehervar is that they're gonna get a new arena. Is that one of your goals in the long run to be there opening day of that new arena, starting goaltender number 29 Michael Ouzas?
Well, I mean, it would be awesome. I have to be honest, I don't know if it's going to happen in my time, but I think they're planning for 5 years. I think 3 to 5 years. I think that's what I heard. So who knows? I mean, I guess they've been talking about the arena for a few years now. So I'm not sure. It looks amazing. They just put an awesome. The football stadium here in the city is awesome. Like brand new, state of the art. Yeah, that's the one thing I guess I didn't mention. Our rink is kind of unique in that it's really cold. It's kind of old, but the atmosphere there, I don't know if you've seen a game in Hungary, but the atmosphere there is wild. People are literally like, when you walk to the rink, like their hands are in your face, like high-fiving you. After the game, they throw chocolate bars on the ice for the players. They ask what kind of chocolate bars you like, and they'll throw them on the ice for you to pick up after the games. They're loud. They're very proud of the organization here, and it's a really cool place to watch a hockey game. And I would say a lot of teams probably don't like coming here to play because it's a little, it's not a state-of-the-art style arena, but we love it. When you're on the other side, we have a great dressing room, great facilities, we have a great gym. Everything for us is in-house and really good. So we love it. The organization's great. All of us, every guy in this team has a great apartment. We get here, our cars are ready. Like all that stuff is really, really first class, which a lot of people probably don't think that about this place. But as far as, all the teams I played on, Linz is definitely one of the upper echelons and probably all of Europe for sure from that aspect. But this place is not that far behind in a lot of aspects.
And it's no coincidence that Fehervar is now the longest tenured international team in this international league. You've come and seen Ljubljana go. You've come and seen Jesenice go. You've come and seen Zagreb go. Was that when you narrowed your choice down with the 4 clubs? Was that one of the deciding factors, the organizational stability that was an advantage that Fehervar had?
Yeah, I didn't really think about that. I do know like their presence here. It's important for this team to be playing in Austria from a standpoint of the quality of players that they bring in to be able to play in the league. There's a lot of good Hungarian players who play on the national team who need that level of competition. So I think it's important that this team will be in the league for forever. I can't imagine they would ever leave. It wasn't really a decision for me in that sense. It was kind of, from the offers I had, this was probably, the most enticing as far as a place to play, which I've played here many times. Love the atmosphere. And then I did a lot of research. I called a lot of people, a lot of guys, good friends that I know that have played here before me, like Laton Dress and Palin, Frankie Banham. Like, there's a lot of players that I called and asked them, and not one person ever said one bad thing, not even like one bad thing about this place. And I'm the same. I've really come to love it here and love the setup and everything. So yeah, it's been really cool so far. But our goal now, as great as that stuff is, it's time for this team to really, make a name for itself in the league, where they're respected and we're respected as a team that can compete. It's time for our team to find a way to do that.
Got two more questions for you. One on the sportive side. As you got to Fehervar last year, you immediately set a team record with 3 shutouts in one season. I'm trying to get this on a positive side. Why do you think you're going to extend that team record this upcoming season?
I hope I can. That'd be cool. But it's if I look at the shutouts and the first one against Linz was, I was so like, you play your old team that you played against, that you played on for 6 years. And if I look at all 3 of those shutouts, like our team game, those games was so good. Those guys, especially in Linz, and I could feel that the guys really wanted to win. It was a special feeling for me. And the level of intensity that our team brought that night and in the other nights, that a shutout, like it's very rare that one guy is the reason for that. Seriously, it's such a team game. And you see there's a year where some guys have 5-6 shutouts, and I'm sure they'll tell you the same thing. Sometimes they get 20 shots, sometimes they get 40 shots. It doesn't really matter. The pieces just kind of fall into place on that given night, and your team plays well and you play well and everything just kind of clicks well. And it's just a byproduct of kind of how everyone plays on a given night, to be honest.
Last question. You said it would be 5 years time down the road when that arena opens. That would put you at the tender age of 40. Dominik Hasek, one of the all-time greats. He played his last professional game at the age of 46. So how do you approach it? How long do you want to play? Is it on a year-by-year basis, or is it calling it quits whenever it stops being fun? How do you approach that?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a year-by-year basis. The biggest thing, I think you said it perfect. I think 3 things kind of go into guys retiring. Usually, one is it's tough to get a contract or a contract that they want. 2, they get injured. And 3, I think the game stops being kind of fun, or you lose the motivation. I kind of said to myself, the time that I'm not motivated to wake up in the morning to train and work out and do my job, even during whatever, like in COVID, my job is to train and work out and take care of my body. So my job is still to get up and work out. The time where I just want to sleep in and not do that might be the time where I just say, you know what, it's been a fun ride. But I think those are the 3 main aspects. Obviously, I'm a single guy, so it's a little bit different. But if I had a family and, maybe the kids are growing up and in school and stuff, that also plays a factor and stuff like that, like life stuff. But for the most part, I think those 3 things are elements of. The 4th one would be life. Like, life throws something your way. But for the most part, yeah, the time where it stops being fun for me to go to the rink, I lose my motivation to put in the time that I want to. And I guess the other aspect of it, which I don't feel yet, but I'm sure at some point you start feeling, is when you just can't do the stuff that you once could do as a goalie, and that's what you work so hard on training wise to keep. But
has a process already set in? Is there something where you can say, man, I did that a lot better 5-10 years ago?
Not really, because I think my style's changed so much. If I watch video for myself in 4 or 5 years ago, I feel like a different human. I look like a different human. Everything from the way the gear is, the way my style is, the way I play, the way I read the game, all that stuff plays a factor. So I really think that it's hard to say I did something easier than I did. But I mean, yeah, for the most part, I don't feel that.
We did this doing conversation or making conversation on a podcast a couple of years back. I looked it up back in 2013, I think it was. We had a conversation for 25 minutes and then I ran out of questions. Now this time around, we're talking for 75 minutes straight. What does that say about us? That there's just so much more to talk about, or that we finally learn how to make proper conversation?
Probably both, but also, it's 7 years of stuff that we probably haven't talked about. So it's a long time. That's basically 10 minutes per year. Not bad.
And I'm sure there's going to be more. Obviously, we haven't really touched on the fitness and workout aspect. What we definitely know is we're going to bring you back. We're going to have you back on. But Mike, thanks so much for taking such extensive time with Hockey O'Clock.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. It was great.
Hockey O'Clock bedankt sich bei Hockey Data für die Unterstützung. Hockey Data, better stats, better sports. Hockey Data ist Österreichs führender Softwareausstatter in den Bereichen Sportstatistik, Verbandsverwaltung, multimedialer Anzeigesysteme und Live-Grafik während Sportübertragungen. Ihr sucht eine Software, um euer Turnier oder eure Liga statistisch oder organisatorisch zu betreuen? Ihr wollt die Statistiken gleich auf eurer Homepage integrieren? Ihr braucht den perfekten Partner für Live-Statistiken und Grafiken bei eurer Streaming-Lösung? Dann findet ihr bei Hockey Data alles, was ihr braucht. Seit Jahren setzen namhafte Kunden wie das Red Bull Media House, der ORF, nationale Verbände und eine Vielzahl von Turnierveranstaltern auf die Softwarelösungen von Hockey Data. Mehr Infos zu den maßgeschneiderten und erschwinglichen Softwarepaketen findet ihr unter www.hockeydata.net, facebook.com/hockeydata oder Instagram @hockeydata. Hockey O'Clock mit Martin Pfanner wieder einmal on Tour. Mir gegenüber sitzt ein sehr interessanter Mann, einer von 2 Eishockey-League-Profi-Schiedsrichtern. Ladislav Smetana, schön, dass du dir die Zeit nimmst.
Ja, Martin, super gerne.
Ladislav, du bist einer von 2 Profis in der Schiedsrichterszene. Wie hat sich dein Leben als Profi-Schiedsrichter verändert im Vergleich zum Halbprofi?
Also verändert, das ist eine gute Frage. Ich kann mich besser vorbereiten. Ich bin mehr unterwegs, habe mehrere Spiele. Eigentlich bin ich 2, 3, 4 Mal die Woche unterwegs, schlafe in Hotels und grundsätzlich habe ich mehr Zeit für Spiele, Regeneration, Vorbereitung.
Wie war das vorher?
Ja, wie war das denn vorher? Vorher habe ich ein bisschen weniger gepfiffen. Vorbereitet war ich auch immer. Allerdings habe ich wie jeder andere auch gearbeitet. Also nach dem Spiel bin ich immer arbeiten gegangen und war wahrscheinlich nicht so erholt.
Jetzt ist es mit dem österreichischen Nachwuchs ähnlich wie mit dem österreichischen Nachwuchs im Refereeing. Man kann nie genug haben. Wenn jetzt jemand Referee werden möchte im Eishockey, wie funktioniert dieser Prozess? Wo kann man beginnen?
Wo man beginnen kann. Also, es ist genau so ein Beispiel, wie ich angefangen habe. Früher habe ich so Eishockey gespielt. Irgendwann mal habe ich aufgehört und wollte eigentlich irgendwas mit Eishockey weitermachen. Angefangen habe ich in Deutschland. Genauso kann man in Wien in Landesverband oder in Landesverband beginnen. Man fängt klein auf. Früher habe ich mal ganz viele Kinder-Nachwuchsspieler gepfiffen und dann ging das einfach weiter, immer weiter, Schüler, Jugend, Junioren bis zu erster Liga.
Wie wichtig ist Eislaufen können? Konkreter Hintergrund, könnte ich jetzt als jemand, der eigentlich nicht Eislaufen kann, aber zumindest ein Grundverständnis für eine Sportart Referee werden?
Nein, ich sage nein. Ich sage leider nein, also Eislaufen ist Grundvoraussetzung. Also wenn du Spieler leiten willst, solltest du schon Schlittschuh laufen können. Also das ist heutzutage diskutiert keiner, ob du Eislaufen kannst oder nicht, oder ob du fit bist oder nicht. Früher war das wesentlich einfacher. Heute verlangen die Teams, Spieler, alles ist schneller, dass man körperlich fit ist und natürlich gut Eislaufen kann.
Jetzt ist es bei Eishockeyspielern so, dass man zwischen sehr guten und mittelmäßigen Eisläufern unterscheidet. Siehst du auch bei Referees, wer ein wirklich guter Eisläufer ist, wer eine gute Technik hat? Achtet man auf sowas?
Eigentlich nicht so, aber ein Ding ist sehr gut, oder was mir gefallen hat, wie der Schlittschuh gelaufen ist, war der Lemmerlin.
Ehemaliger Profischiedsrichter,
Ganz genau,
der mittlerweile in der Schweiz
ist, also der hat mir persönlich gefallen.
Jetzt hast du angesprochen, wie du zum Sport gekommen bist. Kannst du dich noch an deinen ersten Erstliga-Einsatz erinnern? Der war schon in der damaligen Erste Bank Eishockey-Liga.
Vorhin angefangen, also erster Liga-Einsatz. Mein erster Einsatz war eigentlich in der DL in Deutschland. Da habe ich angefangen. Aber wo ich hier bei der Erste Bank-Liga begonnen habe, da kann ich mich auch gut erinnern. Ja, ist schon ein bisschen länger her. Es ist 13 Jahre her, aber ich kann mich immer noch gut erinnern.
Weißt du, welches Spiel? Ich habe es tatsächlich vor mir.
Ich weiß es nicht. Ich weiß es nicht. Meinst du als Linesman oder als Head?
Habe beide Termine vor mir. Beginnen wir als Linesman.
Da musst du mir jetzt helfen.
Der Linesman war tatsächlich vor bald 13 Jahren. Wien gegen Jesenice, ein 6:4, das damals mit Pavel Czervenak und Linesman Robert Falkner damals noch im Dreimann-System gepfiffen. Okay, it rings a bell, also du kannst dich noch daran erinnern.
Ja, das war eine schöne Zeit. Dreimann war nicht so einfach, glaube ich, für den Head war das nicht so einfach, aber mit Robert Falkner, da war endlich das Duo.
Kannst du dich noch erinnern, wie es dir vor diesem Spiel auch in der Vorbereitung gegangen ist? Du hast gewusst, du wirst jetzt das erste Mal auf österreichischem Eis Erstliga-Eishockey mit offizieren oder mitentscheiden. Wie ist es dir in der Vorbereitung und dann vielleicht auch die Minuten vor dem Gang aufs Eis gegangen?
Eigentlich war ich gut vorbereitet, muss ich sagen, da ich wirklich lange in der DL war, also Jahre in der DL war. Deswegen habe ich mir nicht so irgendwie so große Gedanken gemacht. Ich wusste, dass es klappen wird. Also damals hat es auch, glaube ich, geklappt, ist alles gut gelaufen. Sicherlich will man sich zeigen, was man kann, wo man gut ist, wo die Stärken sind. Allerdings hoffe ich oder weiß ich, dass ich das geschafft habe damals.
Fast auf den Tag genau nach deinem 2 Jahre auf den Tag genau nach deinem Linesman-Debüt war dann das Head-Referee-Debüt. Wieder mit Jesenice. Weißt du noch, gegen wen Jesenice damals ein Heimspiel bestritten hat?
Nein, jetzt hast du mich wieder gekriegt.
Nee, will ich nicht bekommen.
War das in Jesenice?
Es war in Jesenice gegen Fehervar AV19 damals. Okay. Und deine Linesmen waren Christian Kasper und Florian Wiedmann. Wie unterscheidet sich die Vorbereitung? Wie unterscheidet es sich vielleicht auch vom mentalen Respekt, wenn man als Linesman in die Partie geht und wenn man als Referee, also als Hauptschiedsrichter in die Partie geht?
Also als Hauptschiedsrichter habe ich bestimmt mehr Respekt gehabt. Ja, es war 100% nicht einfach für mich. Allerdings habe ich ein ganzes Jahr oder 1,5 Jahre davor die Nationalliga, also die 2. Liga gepfiffen als Head. Da muss ich sagen, ich war auch schon, denke ich, vorbereitet. Allerdings das erste Spiel in 1. Liga als Head-Referee nicht so einfach, aber soweit ich mich gut erinnern kann, ist es gut gelaufen für mich.
Du hast ein spannendes Stichwort angesprochen, nämlich die Respektkomponente. Einerseits, dass du Respekt vor der Aufgabe hast, aber wie schafft man es auch, dass die Spieler einen Offiziellen respektieren? Gibt es da bestimmte Tricks und Kniffe?
Erstmal, das ist auch eine gute Frage. Erstmal muss man, glaube ich, Respekt muss man sich erarbeiten. Und dann ist das erstmal Respekt geben und annehmen. Ja, also ich erwarte von den Spielern das, was, denke ich, die Spieler erwarten genau dasselbe von mir. Aber ich bin der Meinung, wirklich Respekt, oftmals muss man sich erarbeiten.
Du bist jetzt seit 11 Jahren Schiedsrichter, Head Referee in der heimischen Eishockey-Liga, hast auch in diversen anderen Ligen via Austausch gepfiffen. Aber ab welchem Zeitpunkt hattest du das Gefühl, dass du dir diesen Respekt erarbeitet hattest?
Also was mir persönlich wirklich sehr geholfen hat, war der Zeitpunkt, wo Ladislav nach Österreich gekommen ist. Und der hat lange Zeit und gut mit uns gearbeitet und das hat uns wirklich nach vorne gebracht. Ich denke nur nicht mich persönlich, aber alle Schiedsrichter.
Und jetzt ist mit Ladislav ja dann auch die Vollzeitumstellung, wenn man so will, vom 3-Mann-System auf das 4-Mann-System gekommen. Auf einmal gab es statt einem Hauptschiedsrichter und 2 Linesmen, 2 Referees, Game Officials und 2 Linesmen. Wie hat sich da auch für dich dann das Aufgabengebiet verändert? Wie hast du dich auf das 4-Mann-System und eingestellt?
Also die Umstellung ist eigentlich problemlos gelaufen für uns. Ich glaube nicht nur für uns, für die Spieler, für den Eishockey war das die beste Entscheidung, die man treffen konnte. weil das Spiel immer schneller geworden ist. Und 4 Mann, also vier Referees auf 2 Heads, wirklich mehr wie nur einer. Und das Spiel ist wirklich so schnell geworden. Meiner Meinung nach haben wir, nicht nur wir, aber alle Schiedsrichter oder alle Ligen, die im Dreimann-System gearbeitet haben, viele Fehlentscheidungen gehabt oder viele Sachen, die wir nicht gesehen haben oder die wir anders sehen könnten. Also meiner Meinung nach wirklich die beste Entscheidung.
Jetzt hört das Spiel ja nicht auf, schneller zu werden. Die Athleten werden größer, schneller, agiler. Glaubst du, dass es irgendwann auch mal Sinn machen könnte, dann vielleicht in einem 5-Mann- oder sogar 6-Mann-System zu pfeifen?
Nein.
Warum nicht?
Also ich glaube, die Spielfläche ist wirklich gut aufgeteilt. Spieler sind, es wird wirklich immer schneller. Wir sind auch, glaube ich, immer schneller. Die jungen Schiedsrichter sind wirklich sehr gute Schlittschuhläufer. Schnell, gut durchtrainiert. Ich glaube, einen 5. Mann braucht man meist nicht mehr.
Die Laufwege von 3-Mann-System zum 4-Mann-System haben sich ja dann auch geändert. Wie lange hat das gedauert für dich, bis du das wirklich intus hattest? Und was waren vielleicht die größten Unterschiede?
Im 3-Mann-System bin ich oft, also die meiste Zeit vorwärts gelaufen. Jetzt 4-Mann-System läuft als Referee 4 rückwärts. Und dadurch ist es natürlich mehr. Also die Laufwege, du läufst nicht mehr so viel. Ich würde sagen sogar die Hälfte weniger wie ein 3-Mann-System. Und dadurch kann man sich wirklich, ich würde nicht sagen besser konzentrieren, also man konzentriert sich auf das oder man sieht einfach mehr.
Jetzt weiß ich schon, es ist ein Podcast und der ist nur zum Hören und es gibt nichts zu sehen. Aber beschreib mal vom Face-Off weg vielleicht, wie sich, und wir nehmen das Eröffnungs-Face-Off zu Spielbeginn in der Spielmitte, wie bewegen sich die Schiedsrichter danach? Das Eröffnungs-Face-Off macht ja einer der beiden Head-Referees. Wie kommt es erst einmal dazu, wer dieses Eröffnungs-Face-Off macht? Also
vor dem Spiel sagen wir uns schon, wer das erste Face-Off machen möchte. Also ich mache das grundsätzlich nie.
Ist das Routine, Aberglaube?
Das ist nicht Aberglaube, das ist, ich mag es einfach nicht. Das ist mir lieber, wenn ich wirklich im 2. Drittel das erste Face-Off mache, aber damit, das ist wirklich Verhandlungssache. Also wenn ein Kollege das machen möchte, wir haben wirklich Kollegen, die unbedingt, gerade wenn ein Fernsehen dabei ist, Eröffnungspulli machen möchten. Also damit bin ich wirklich einverstanden.
Gut, jetzt macht dieser Kollege das Face-Off. Wie bewegen sich die Referees danach und wie bewegen sich die Linesmen?
Also der erste Referee, der Face-Off macht, in der Mitte, schmeißt die Scheibe ein und man sollte ein paar Sekunden warten, wo die Scheibe hingeht. Und wenn sich die Scheibe nach links bewegt, dann läuft der zweite Referee mit der Scheibe hin.
Und nehmen wir an, es gibt dann eine Offensivaktion, dann hat jeder Referee quasi sein Drittel.
Das würde ich nicht so sagen, sein Drittel.
Aber der eine Referee ist auf jeden Fall mal, es gibt eine Offensivaktion in die rechte Seite. Beide Mannschaften sind, oder die eine Mannschaft ist im Angriffsdrittel, die andere logischerweise in ihrem Verteidigungsdrittel. Der eine Referee ist dann auch dort meistens hinterm Tor, richtig?
Ganz genau so ist es. Also der läuft mit der Scheibe mit, also meistens rückwärts und hat die ganze Situation, läuft rückwärts und sieht alles, die ganze Eisfläche. Und der andere Referee läuft vorwärts und sieht genau dasselbe von der Spiegelseite.
Bleibt meistens in der neutralen Zone und mehr oder minder diagonal gegenübergestellt. Ist das richtig?
Ja.
Und der Sinn und Zweck des Ganzen ist diese Diagonalverschiebung?
Bessere Sicht. Einfach bessere Sicht.
Lässt sich, weil du das angesprochen hast vorher, nachvollziehen, wenn ich richtig informiert bin, werden Strafen ja auch erhoben und mitgezeichnet. Lässt sich nachvollziehen, dass mehr richtige Entscheidungen oder weniger Fehlentscheidungen von der Umstellung von 3- auf 4-Mann-System getroffen worden sind?
Also ich glaube, sogar die Statistik existiert. Wir haben jetzt bin ich mir nicht sicher, wie viele weniger mehr, allerdings die Entscheidungen sind besser. Wir haben nicht so viele Misscalls. Ist natürlich klar, wenn du ein Mann bist, du kannst nicht alle sehen, das geht nicht. Also heutzutage arbeitet keiner mehr in Dreimann-System in Europa, glaube ich. Also im Nachwuchs schon. Allerdings sogar da bei Union ist es so schnell. Da brauchst du wirklich sehr, sehr gute Linesmen, die dich unterstützen.
Jetzt bist du einer der erfahrensten Referees im Fehervar-Torhüter-Michael-Ouzas-Kader. Versuchst du auch jungen Referees, die jetzt nachkommen, ein wenig Mentor zu sein, ein wenig mit ihnen zu arbeiten?
Das hoffe ich. Das mache ich super gerne. Und wir haben wirklich ein paar sehr gute junge Schiedsrichter. Und jeden, den ich helfen kann, helfe ich super gerne. Gleichzeitig
gab es dieses Jahr oder gab es in dieser Offseason einen Talent-Drain. Manuel und Christian Nikolic verlassen die Fehervar Eishockey-Liga, um regelmäßig in der Schweizer National League zu pfeifen. Was bedeutet für dich, was bedeutet für den heimischen Referee-Kader deren Abgang?
Das ist eine gute Frage. Also für mich eigentlich schade, dass die weg sind. Also es waren wirklich sehr gute Schiedsrichter bei mir, die Miro Stolz auch. Also ich finde es eigentlich schade.
Stimmt, Miro Stolz natürlich vergessen.
Ja. Aber die Liga geht weiter. Vielleicht muss man mehr Auto fahren, dadurch, dass die von Innsbruck und Vorarlberg sind. Aber ich wünsche dir wirklich alles Gute.
Im Umkehrschluss, wenn aus der Schweizer National League und die Nikolic-Brüder vielleicht ja nicht überall die beliebtesten Referees, nicht, dass ein Referee es jetzt auf Beliebtheit abgesehen hätte, aber wenn eine Liga wie die Schweizer National League anklopft, kann man vermutlich nicht alles ganz falsch gemacht haben. Wäre jetzt die naive Sicht der Dinge.
Ich bin von überzeugt, dass die guten Job gemacht haben oder dass die Liga die gut ausgebildet hat.
Es geht auch um diese Ausbildung, um diese Weiterbildung. Ab wann beginnt für dich eine Vorbereitung auf die Saison?
Also ich trainiere eigentlich die ganze Saison. In meinem Alter machst eine Woche Pause nach der Saison, eine Woche Urlaub, 2 Wochen und dann muss ich anfangen. Also ich trainiere eigentlich die ganze Saison mal durch.
Wie sieht ein Sommertraining, wie sieht ein Wochentraining bei dir aus?
Also ich habe wirklich einen sehr guten Coach. Mit dem verbringe ich jeden Tag 1,5 Stunden. Und das überlasse ich alles ihm, was er mit mir macht, was er mit mir plant und was er mit mir vorhat. Und dann Trainingscamp komme ich immer vorbereitet. Und die ganze Saison halte ich mich irgendwie fit. Und das hat funktioniert und ich hoffe, dass es so ein paar Jahre noch bleibt.
Jetzt gibt es vielleicht den einen oder anderen Hörer, die eine oder andere Hörerin, die sich denkt, Eishockey, Referee, das traue ich mir zu, weil Schlittschuhlaufen kann ich. Aber was gibt es da für konkrete Übungen? Gehst du viel laufen? Bist du viel am Ergometer? Sind das Kraftübungen? Was versuchst du zu machen?
Zum Beispiel, ich mache viel Spinning. Rad fahre ich nicht so gerne. Allerdings mache ich viel Spinning, Bewegungsübungen, was ich nicht mache. Also ich bin eigentlich fast jeden Tag im Fitnessstudio. Allerdings hebe ich nicht so viele Gewichte. Alles, was ich mache, ist ein Eigenkörper. Ich mache viel Yoga, TRX und so weiter.
Wie viele Eiseinheiten sind mit dabei in einer normalen Woche? Versuchst du dann auch aufs Eis zu gehen oder ist dann nur am Spieltag der Eiskontakt da?
Im Sommer gehe ich gar nicht aufs Eis. Vor der Saison, vor den Spielen gehe ich so 2 Wochen vor der Saison, versuche ich ein bisschen aufs Eis zu gehen, ein bisschen laufen. Allerdings auf dem Eis bin ich wirklich nur wenn ich Spiele habe.
Sind die Eishockey-Regeln zwar grob gesehen nicht allzu komplex, aber es gibt dann schon viele Dinge, die sehr tricky sein können von den Abläufen her. Wie oft versuchst du übers Regelbuch zu gehen? Und ich meine, in der heimischen Eishockey-Liga gibt es dann auch noch das Gamebook, das sich leicht davon unterscheidet. Wie muss man das sehen als Profi-Referee? Wie oft versucht man sich die Regeln zu Gemüte zu führen?
Also ob Profi oder nicht Profi-Referee, jeder Schiedsrichter muss die Regeln kennen. Das ist A und O und ich bin der Meinung, jeder sollte da wirklich so oft reinschauen, wie es geht.
Wie oft tust du es?
Also ich tue es immer zum Beispiel, wenn wir mit dem Auto zum Spiel fahren, wir gehen die Regeln mal schon mal durch, gucken, was es Neues gibt und wiederholen immer wieder dieselben Situationen, weil so wie ich es gesagt habe, wenn man die Regeln nicht kennt, ist es ein Problem.
Jetzt bekommst du zu Beginn einer Saison und dann fortlaufend deine Einteilungen. Du weißt also, mit wem du im Referee-Verbund bist. Du weißt, mit wem du im Linesman-Verbund sein wirst. Gibt es da dann vor einem Spiel einen Zeitpunkt, wo man sich zusammen telefoniert, oder trifft man dann erstmals in der Halle aufeinander und macht dann die Game Day Routine?
Es hängt wirklich davon ab, ob die Jungs aus Wien kommen oder nicht, ob wir gemeinsam fahren oder nicht. Aber meistens, also fast immer telefonieren wir schon einen Tag vorher, wo wir uns treffen, wann wir uns treffen, ob wir uns in der Halle treffen, ob wir gemeinsam fahren, ob wir uns unterwegs treffen. Vielleicht fahren wir mit der Bahn. Also wir versuchen schon gemeinsam zu fahren. Und was auch gut ist, ich finde es wirklich gut. Und wenn die Jungs außerhalb kommen, treffen wir uns wirklich vor dem Spiel, erstmal in der Halle. Aber telefonieren tun wir auf jeden Fall einen Tag vor dem Spiel.
Bei diesem Telefongespräch geht es da dann auch schon um Inhaltliches zum Spiel?
Nein. Nee. Also über das Spiel sprechen wir jetzt wirklich vor dem Spiel oder im Auto.
Du für dich bist ja jemand, der sich immer akribisch vorbereitet. Wenn du weißt, du hast jetzt als nächstes KAC gegen die Vienna Capitals zu pfeifen, schaust du dir die letzten Spiele an dieser beiden Vereine? Schaust du dir vielleicht Schlüsselspieler an, Agitoren oder dergleichen?
Also, man kennt sich. Man kennt sich wirklich auch gut in der Liga. Man weiß, was man zu erwarten hat, von wem man was erwarten hat. Aber grundsätzlich achte ich nicht, wo ich pfeife, wer spielt, wer nicht spielt. Ich gucke schon, wer auf dem Spielbericht ist, wer gerade nicht dabei ist, ob sich da Veränderungen haben oder nicht. Allerdings, im Endeffekt ist mir das, jedes Spiel fängt bei 0 an, egal wer auf dem Eis steht oder nicht.
Es gibt eine Frage, die von einem User reinkam. Alexander Pucher möchte nämlich wissen, ob es Hallen gibt, wo man mit einem mulmigen Gefühl hinfährt. Du sagst, es ist dir egal, wo du pfeifst. Ist dem wirklich so?
Ja, das ist mir wirklich egal. Im Winter ist es nicht so, da würde ich lügen. Also im Winter ist es manchmal so, wir haben manche Hallen, wenn es draußen -5 Grad gibt, da ist es schon anstrengend, in der Kälte zu pfeifen.
Jetzt bist du in der Halle angekommen. Es gab die ersten Unterhaltungen mit dem zweiten Referee, mit den 2 Linesmen. Gibt's so einen Moment für dich, wo du dann aber versuchst, dich noch einmal zu sammeln, zu fokussieren? Wie muss man vielleicht so die letzten 10, 15 Minuten sehen, bevor es aufs Eis geht? Gibt's eine Routine? Außer, dass du das Eröffnungs-Face-Off nicht machen möchtest?
Ja. Meistens ist es wirklich so, dass wir vor dem Spiel noch auf Kaffee gehen. 1,5 Stunden vorher trinken wir noch immer einen Kaffee. Und eine Stunde vorher fangen wir an mit der Vorbereitung. Ich persönlich, sicherlich spielen wir ein bisschen Fußball, machen ein bisschen warm, aber eine halbe Stunde vor dem Spiel möchte ich persönlich meine Ruhe haben, auch ein bisschen auf das Spiel konzentrieren. Aber der eine mag das so, der andere nicht. Also ich persönlich brauche eine halbe Stunde vor dem Spiel meine Ruhe.
Es gibt Mannschaften wie Red Bull Salzburg, die kommen immer wie aus der Pistole geschossen, dann aufs Eis. Es gibt Goalies, die sagen, sie wollen gerne früh Torschüsse bekommen, um quasi ins Spiel zu kommen. Gibt's für dich eine Art, in ein Spiel hineinzufinden? Oder sind die Spiele zu unterschiedlich?
Nein, die Spiele sind alle unterschiedlich. Man weiß wirklich nie, was passiert, wann es passiert. Deswegen sage ich, immer von der ersten Minute dabei sein.
Der Druck, die Erwartungshaltung, auch durch Social Media an die Referees wird immer höher. Man geht davon aus, dass Referees immer die richtige Entscheidung treffen müssen, obwohl es wirklich Entscheidungen in Bruchteilen einer Sekunde bedingt. Wie gehst du mit diesem Druck, mit dieser Erwartungshaltung um?
Ich denke, ich kann damit dann wirklich ganz gut umgehen. Was mir hilft, zum Beispiel durch den Playoffs, Finalserien, lese ich grundsätzlich keine Zeitung, Social Medias. Ich versuche wirklich abzuschalten. Druck ist natürlich da, Fehlentscheidungen gehören dazu. Jeder macht eine Fehlentscheidung. Und wenn es passiert, dann versuche ich es einfach so schnell möglich zu vergessen.
Wie funktioniert dieser dieser Prozess und das schnelle Vergessen ist ja auch im Sport ein Schlüssel, um quasi von einem Fehler zurückzukommen. Aber wenn es dann in den Drittelpausen vielleicht ein Briefing gibt oder nach den Spielen über offensichtliche Fehler und Fehlentscheidungen gesprochen wird, wie versuchst du damit umzugehen?
Nach dem Spiel ist nach dem Spiel. Also nach dem Spiel, in dem Moment mache ich mir erstmal keine Gedanken. Man muss es wirklich ein bisschen ausruhen lassen. Ich gucke mir schon die Spiele an. Wir kriegen Feedback von Lyle, Greg und Schiffi und so weiter, von Supervisern. Dann beschäftige ich mich damit. Allerdings sage ich, die Fehler passieren. Es werden immer wieder Fehler passieren. Und während der Spiele, sondern nach der Pause, man muss es einfach vergessen.
Jetzt hast du gesagt, dir ist egal, wo gepfiffen wird. Kann mir aber vorstellen, dass dich die eine oder andere Umgebung vielleicht doch nicht ganz kalt lässt. Also es zuletzt ein Winter Classic in Österreich gab, das war am 3. Jänner 2015, warst du einer der beiden Head Referees. Ist das dann auch ein Spiel wie jedes andere?
Nein, da würde ich lügen. Also das war was Sensationelles. Ja, das war ein einmaliges Erlebnis. Ja, sowas erlebt wahrscheinlich jeder Schiedsrichter nur einmal in der Karriere. Ich empfehle es jedem. Top.
Beschreibe mal diesen Moment. Du gehst aus deiner Kabine raus und du weißt, da wartet ein volles Fußballstadion mit 30.000 Menschen auf dich.
Also da sage ich wirklich, nur genießen. Nur genießen. Einziges Problem, was wir da hatten, war das Problem mit dem Eis. Allerdings sage ich nur genießen.
Das wäre natürlich, oder das muss natürlich die nächste Frage sein. Es war kein Winter Classic wie jedes andere, nicht, dass wir es jetzt so häufig in Österreich oder in der heimischen Liga gehabt hätten. Weißt du noch, wo du warst und wann du zum ersten Mal diesen grünen Sprudel aus der Torversenkung gesehen hast?
Ich glaube, ich habe es gesehen, wo wir aufs Eis sind. Jetzt kann ich mir nicht gut erinnern. Ich habe mir letztens sogar das Spiel nochmal angeschaut. Ich habe das noch auf der CD oder auf dem USB-Stick. Ich habe es gesehen. Allerdings, wo ich war, weiß ich nicht. Ich weiß nur, keiner. Ich persönlich habe nicht geglaubt, dass wir weiterspielen. Also Hut ab von den Jungs, die das geschafft haben. Ich persönlich habe nicht mehr geglaubt, dass wir weiterspielen.
Die Unterbrechung war satte 50 Minuten lang. Die Mannschaften sind währenddessen wieder in die Kabine gegangen, das Referee-Team auch.
Ja, wir saßen in der Garderobe und haben gewartet, ja. Und also so ein langer Unterbruch während des Spieles, schlimm.
Ist das eines der Highlights als Referee? Hat man naturgemäß, weil man Entscheidungen treffen muss und da auch irgendwann auch eine falsche logischerweise mit dabei sein muss, auch immer wieder Lowlights zu verzeichnen? Gibt's eine Entscheidung, auch wenn du versuchst, sie auszublenden und zu vergessen, mit der du im Nachhinein immer noch haderst, wo du sagst, du hättest diese Entscheidung gerne noch einmal, um die richtige zu fällen?
Das ist eine schwere Frage.
Natürlich,
also
es gibt nur schwierige Fragen.
Das ist wirklich eine schwere Frage. Also da gibt es einige Entscheidungen, die ich gerne, was heißt, ja, die Entscheidung kann man nicht machen, aber
das ist mir schon klar. Aber
da gibt es einige Entscheidungen, wo ich jetzt sage, das hätte ich jetzt ganz anders gemacht.
Inwieweit ist die Erfahrung, das gemacht zu haben, wichtig, um es beim nächsten Mal zu vermeiden? Es gibt ja den berühmten Satz, Fehler dürfen passieren, aber eben kein zweites Mal.
Da bin ich bei dir. Allerdings würde ich das nicht so sehen, Fehler. Ja, du hast in einer Sekunde schlechte Position. Du schaust einfach nicht hin oder schaust hin. Es wird immer wieder passieren, also kein Fehler. Also ich hoffe, dass mir das nicht zweites Mal passiert, aber in Eishockey passiert eigentlich selten dieselbe Situation zweimal. Wir haben vor Jahren ein siebtes Playoff-Spiel, Halbfinale Salzburg gegen Wien. Kopfcheck Kopfcheck an, sagt mir noch best damals ein Top-Torjäger von Wien.
Benoit Graton?
Ja, ganz genau, Gehirnerschütterung. Beide hingeschaut, keiner hat's gesehen.
Vom Puls24-Eishockey-Experten Daniel Welser damals ausgeführt?
Ja, ganz genau. Check zum Kopf, wir haben es nicht gesehen. Und das ist so eine Sache, da sage ich, sowas passiert mir nicht nochmal.
Daniel Welser wurde dann auch im Nachhinein gesperrt, aber wenn wir vielleicht dann auch für die Nachvollziehbarkeit der Zuhörerinnen und Zuhörer diese Szene uns nochmal vergegenwärtigen. Daniel Welser checkt Benoit Granton gegen den Kopf. Ihr seht es im Spiel nicht, Benoit Granton ist raus, Daniel Welser wird nach der Partie für 8 Spiele gesperrt. Aber was oder wie ist mit euch nach dieser Partie umgegangen worden? Kommt dann jemand zu euch, sagt...
Sicher. Also das war ein Halbfinale, das ist 2 Jahre her. Allerdings weiß ich ganz genau, was passiert ist. Also wir waren raus, die Saison war für uns beendet. Also ich sag nicht, wir bestraft. Allerdings war die Saison für uns beendet. Also für so eine Fehlentscheidung, da gibt es kein Wenn und Aber. Einer von uns hätte es sein sollen oder müssen. Haben wir nicht. Es ist passiert. Ja.
Wie wichtig ist die mentale Komponente? Wie stark muss man mental sein oder muss man eine gewisse mentale Stärke mitbringen, um ein guter Referee zu sein?
Ganz wichtig. Also mental...
Arbeitest du da mit einem Trainer dran, mit bestimmten Techniken?
Also einen Trainer dafür habe ich nicht. Oft habe ich mal mit dem Greg, mit Lyle, mit Schiff drüber gesprochen und die Jungs, die haben mir wirklich mal geholfen, wo ich oft Fragen habe, wo ich einen Fehler gemacht habe, wo ich gefragt habe, was würde es anders machen, wie. Also ich habe immer eine Antwort bekommen.
Was war da vielleicht so ein Tipp, der dir gegeben worden ist?
Zum Beispiel nach dieser Situation vergessen.
Okay, Short Memory.
Ja, vergiss es einfach, es ist passiert, die Saison ist gelaufen.
Wie wichtig ist für den Referee oder um Referee zu werden auch eine Art Fairness-Gedanke? Wie wichtig ist dir Fairness auf dem Eis?
Also es ist im Sport meiner Meinung nach das Wichtigste.
Kurz und bündig. Wenn du das Freiluftderby ausklammerst, das ist tatsächlich was Einzigartiges. Was sind für dich Spiele, wo du sagst, für die lebst du? Ist es die Finalserie? Ist es ein Spiel 7 oder sind für dich Spiele, wenn du sie pfeifen darfst, alle gleich wichtig?
Nein, gleich sind die nicht. Lügen gleich sind die nicht. Also ich glaube, jeder Schiedsrichter, genauso wie jeder Spieler, will im letzten Spiel der Saison dabei auf dem Eis sein. Also da arbeite ich die ganze Saison. Und das ist mein Ziel seit Jahren. Und das ist beim Spielern, ich glaube, bei den Schiedsrichtern ist das genau dasselbe. Also jeder will beim letzten Spiel dabei sein.
Du bist jetzt seit 11 Jahren Head Referee. Du gehst in die nächste Saison auch wieder als einer der Cornerstones der Battered Home Eishockey-Liga Referees. Gibt es für dich noch so eine Art Karriereziel als Referee? Wo soll es hingehen?
Das ist, was ich dir gesagt habe. Die nächste Saison, Spiel 7, Finalserie oder Spiel 6.
Gibt es auch internationale Ambitionen, wo du sagst?
Durch den Covid wissen wir nicht, was passiert international. Also diese Saison werde ich mir wirklich nur hauptsächlich auf die Liga konzentrieren. Keiner weiß, was passiert, ob wir irgendwo hinfahren, wo wir hinfahren. Also im Moment denke ich gar nicht drüber nach.
Alles klar, ich belasse es dabei. Sag vielen lieben Dank, dass du so ausführlich Zeit genommen hast für die tollen Einblicke ins Referee-Wesen und auf bald wieder bei Hockey O'Clock mit Martin Pfanner.
Ich sag vielen Dank. Danke.
Hockey O'Clock bedankt sich bei Hockey Data für die Unterstützung. Hockey Data, better stats, better sports. Hockey Data ist Österreichs führender Softwareausstatter in den Bereichen Sportstatistik, Verbandsverwaltung, multimediale Anzeigesysteme und Sportmarketinglösungen. Du möchtest den Sponsoren deines Vereins mehr bieten als nur ihr Logo auf der Website? Wir haben die Online-Schnittstelle, die Sponsoren und Fans zusammenbringt. Mach deine Fans für deine Sponsoren zu Kunden und Mitarbeitern mit exklusiven Angeboten und Stellenanzeigen auf deiner Website. Wie? Mit unserem Online-Tool Win-Win Partners als Teil deiner WordPress-Website. Und das Beste, deine Sponsoren können ihre Angebote und Jobs selbst direkt in deine Vereinswebsite einbinden. Interesse geweckt? Dann kontaktiere Hockey Data über www.hockeydata.net, facebook.com/hockeydata oder auf Instagram @hockeydata und erhalte mit dem Kennwort Hockey O'Clock 5% Rabatt auf deine Softwarelizenz. Hockey Data, better stats, better sports. Hockey O'Clock mit Martin Pfanner soll natürlich auch ein bilinguales Erlebnis sein für Leute, die der deutschen Sprache vielleicht nicht ganz so mächtig sind. Deswegen habe ich mir beim folgenden Gast etwas ganz Besonderes einfallen lassen. Die Legende Greg Holst zuerst auf Englisch und dann für alle diejenigen, die der englischen Sprache nicht ganz so mächtig sind, auf Deutsch. Ihr entnehmt die Timecodes dafür dann einfach den Shownotizen genau dort, wo ihr eben eure Podcasts hört. Es geht los mit Greg Holst auf Englisch. The man sitting across from me doesn't necessarily need an introduction. I'm giving him one anyway. He's the legend that is Greg Holst, longtime VSV coach. He brought a championship, the last one actually, to Villach. Coach, pleasure to have you on the show.
Well, thank you very much, Martin. It's a pleasure to be here.
Coach, how have the first few days back in Austria been for you? How did you get settled?
Well, firstly, it was a little bit of surprise that I am back in Villach one more time. My first 3-4 days, I had to organize my apartment, which I am organizing myself. Had to organize internet, cable, cell phone, and organize a car. So in the past, it was always already set up for me from the team, which was, I see now, a great luxury. But it was a good experience to get it all done. I did lots of walking. I had Wi-Fi at McDonald's where I maybe was 15 times in 3 or 4 days at checking the Wi-Fi. So good experience, happy to be back. I sat down, I enjoyed downtown Villach in the late afternoon and had a beer. It was really nice.
How did you get through lockdown?
Well, lockdown, it's, for the whole world, it's a really tough time. And I was actually in Florida spending a couple months, and the news came out that this COVID virus was hitting everywhere pretty heavy. So word was I had to get back to Canada as soon as I could. So I flew back to Montreal. I cut my stay short in the middle of March, flew to Montreal, saw my mom and dad for 1 day and flew right back to Kelowna, British Columbia, where I lived. Then I had a quarantine for 14 days, other than walking in the mountain by myself. So it was quite an experience, and I'm not alone, so it is what it is.
You're in your mid-60s, unbelievably so, and you still have your mom and dad. So that means to me that there is some great genes running in the Holst family.
Well, I'm not sure I'm going to last as long as them. Dad is 91. Mom is going to be 90. She did have a close call not too long ago with some heart problems, but they are both full of life. They've lived an unbelievable life, how they've traveled. They've lived in Florida 20 years in the winters. They traveled Europe. They've had a fantastic life. There's not many of their friends left. I'm pretty lucky to have them, and we still have lots of fun together.
With the show, we're always giving users the chance to ask questions to our guests. One of them did. Tony Walch wanted to know what your highlights from your hockey school in Summerland, British Columbia have been, and to get users and listeners up to speed, what's that all about?
Well, hi, Tony. How you doing? Thanks for the question. After I stopped playing at approximately age 40, I moved to British Columbia from Montreal, and I started doing some private coaching in the mornings before school from 6 to 8. Started with 3-4 players and ended up having 40. So I decided to do a hockey school in Summerland, British Columbia, which is an hour from Kelowna, because it's a great facility. It has the ice, has the sleeping quarters. It's all indoors. The cafeteria, I had my all private cooks, my wife at the time. And I got a hockey school going, and it was fantastic. And I did it for 20 years. The first year I had 4 weeks. We did 4 weeks for about 7-8 years, and then I cut it back to 2 weeks. And at the end, 1 week, because it is a tough job. Plus, I was coaching in Europe, and I was back and forth. So it was a great experience. I still know lots of the players that came to my first school. We still meet them. I see them sometimes for a beer in Kelowna. Great experience, pure hockey wheat. Ole Hicks, who now works in the Okanagan, worked with me for 20 years. We had a great staff, pure hockey, 20 ice a week, great food, great experience. Not much sleep.
So what's your single highlight been if you had to put your finger on one thing?
Well, that's a pretty tough one, because it's a tough question because every year we had highlights. And my first year working with the players, they were so tough, street smart, great kids, great hockey players, and we could work them so hard. But over the years, I saw how everything changed. And by the end of in the last 3-4 years, it became all skill, 1 to 6, rest. Everything changed, cell phones. So I had to change my whole philosophy. If there was a couple of highlights, one would have been a good friend from my son, Max. We were in the final game on a Saturday morning, and all the parents were there. And Big Max got a breakaway, and he was so excited to score, and it was dead silent in the rink. He actually went the wrong way and scored on his own goalie. And he's a great kid. It's just one of those things. He ended up getting drafted in NHL. He played American League. He became a great player. And that was a funny story. One other one, we had this little small player from the United States. Really small, but he was really good. And we got into overtime in that final game. Once again, lots of fans, all the parents are there, closing up the school. And it came down to, we had our goalie coach in nets. And he was in for the final penalty shot in overtime. And this little player who was about 11 years old went down and deked him and put that puck top shelf. And the camp was over. And it was pretty exciting. But I can honestly say there were so many good memories. All the kids that I met, still in touch. We had a fantastic time. And like I said, I see these kids now, they're grown up, and we look back and they give me nice compliments to myself and our whole staff and the food, that it's one of the best hockey experiences they've ever had because it was positive, it was lots of ice, pure hockey, and we had lots of fun.
You've come over because you're going to be in a role as an expert analyst for Puls24. How did that come all about?
Well, it wasn't expected, obviously, but I got a phone call if I would be interested, if I was thinking of coming back to Austria, which I was. Would you be interested in possibly, doing some work for the TV? And I said, geez, that sounds kind of exciting because I am a hockey guy and I love hockey, and I thought it'd be a pretty good opportunity. So I said, yeah, and I had to go through, the casting was a little bit different, going through Zoom from, Europe to Canada. But I did it, and it went quite well. And then I waited to see if they were interested, which they were. And then I had to decide, okay, can I do this? Can I get over with the COVID? Can I get it all done? Which I did. And here I am, and I will be working for Puls, and it's going to be a great experience. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Within the team of former players and experts, you're going to working alongside Danny Welser and Terry Honig. How are you going to interpret your role as an expert?
Well, I'm going to listen to yourself, Martin. I'm going to listen to you.
You have to.
Which direction you like to go. But the one thing I am going to be is, definitely more positive than negative. I think we have to sell a game. We have to be honest with what we see. Even if sometimes you get a little bit of critic, you have to say it the way it is. But being positive, selling the game is important. I think there's going to be, obviously lots of German-speaking fans, but also a lot of English-speaking fans with, all the wives of the imports, the families, their families come over. So doing that, entirely, mostly in German, but, throwing in a few English words, trying to mix it up a little bit, I think could be fun. But I think the biggest thing is honesty, and call it the way it is, and be positive.
Another question that came in from one of our listeners, it's from Alex Pucher. He wants to know how in 1978 it was for you to get from the Big Apple, the New York Rangers, to the small valley in Innsbruck. Can you remember how that change of scenery struck you?
Oh, I have a good story on that one. First of all, it was a surprise. The New York Rangers, even though I only played 11 games for them, offered me another 2-year contract. And I thought I should be on a one-way. It was a 2-way contract. Sometimes we think like that. And I had a chance to go to Mannheim, Germany, through a fellow named Derek Holmes from Hockey Canada. And at the last second, Darryl Maggs was a defenseman, and they needed he was going to Innsbruck, but we made a swap because they needed a defense. Innsbruck needed a forward. I ended up in Innsbruck. So here I do. I land in Innsbruck, right downtown, Maria Theresier Street. I meet the guys. We go for a couple of beers. I get up at lunchtime, and I walk outside and look around. I go, wow, this is freaking beautiful. But my dress, I had jeans with the big wide bell bottoms. I was the only guy. I thought I was the only guy in style. I was so out of style because everybody had tight jeans. I had this big lapels on my shirt, the big wide bell bottoms, and people were looking at me a little bit funny. So anyway, that's number one. So I'm walking around the Sparkasse Bank and all around, and people are going by me and they're saying something to me, right? And they're going, Mahlzeit, Mahlzeit. And I'm going, okay, I'm not sure what these people are saying to me, but this is not very good. So I checked my fly, make sure my zipper was up. I looked around, and I didn't realize at lunchtime people do say that on the street. They were saying Mahlzeit, which I had no idea. So I started getting a little aggressive back, with my emotion. I go, hey, what's your problem? What's your problem? Anyway, I got through it. I asked the guys, what are they saying to me? Well, they're saying good appetite, enjoy your lunch. So that was my first day in Tirol, and it was quite a funny one.
I can already promise listeners right here that we're going to have you on a show a couple more times. So I want to keep the following question a little shorter, or the following topic a little shorter than it usually would be. Your infamous interview on YouTube is approaching 170,000 clicks. When thinking back of it, or thinking of it now, how well do you think it aged?
I think it probably aged not bad. I mean, this was not planned. This is the emotion of the game, the heat of the moment. How it transpired was crazy, and what happened afterwards, people don't even know, is incredible. But I know the kids at home, some of the kids at home had it and still have it on their handies, as they did here. My mom has a shirt which says, I don't know if I can swear on this podcast, but it says fucking absolute. My mother, who's 90, she's got one of those shirts. So it became something that I never expected to become. It was the heat of the moment. But, it's funny because I played 19 years pro and I coached a long time, and I seem to be remembered for one interview, So it's actually kind of funny. It was, I think my heart was going about 200 beats a minute at the time, but it's become a little bit historical. It's become actually a lot of fun. If I look back now, I'm happy I did it then, because if I do it now, it did cost me some money then in a game suspension. But now I think I might be heading back to Florida for a good holiday.
I'm going to make another promise on this podcast. We're going to dedicate one entire episode to that interview, pre-game, the game, the aftermath, everything. You've heard it here first. Coming to your way sometimes this season on the podcast. One last question that's going to tackle the sporty side of summer action that has finally picked up in the Better-at-Home Ice Hockey League. Players have been signed to clubs. There's been some movement. One player going from one team to another. Is there an observation? Is there something that struck you? Something that stands out for you in terms of, let's call it, free agency in the Better-at-Home Ice Hockey League?
Well, I followed it a little bit, not exactly, which I will start once I just got my internet and everything settled the last couple of days. I know it took a long time for the transfer be able to happen, so everybody's a little late getting on board. But one of the surprises, because I did ask about Schofield, and he ended up being in Salzburg, which I was very surprised, because he's not only a great player, but when I came back to Filac in 2015 and by surprise ended up taking over the first team, Schofield, he was one of my key guys, not only on the ice, but in the dressing room. He was one of my backbone guys. He was a great player, and he was fantastic in the dressing room. So I think really smart that Salzburg grabbed him. I think he's going to really help them on the ice, off the ice. They have lots of young players. Great move by Salzburg. I know some teams are going to sign quite a few imports because not expensive as they used to be because of the COVID. Got lots of guys looking for jobs. I still love to see the young Austrian kids become the opportunity. I was always for them, and it feel like over the years I always played a lot of young guys back to the days of Tough, Raffle, Grabner, whatever their names were. And I gave the kids the opportunity, and I really hope that that continues on some teams, that they give some of these young players the chance. But I will follow a little closer now. I think there's going to be lots of good teams. I think it's going to be pretty close. You know, it always comes down to good goaltending, special teams. But I think we're going to see a lot of good young Austrian players this year, hopefully make a nice step forward in the league.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Just for all the listeners' information, this exact interview with the exact same questions is coming up now, just in German. Coach, thanks for your time. Hear you soon.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Der Mann, der mir gegenüber sitzt, er braucht eigentlich keine Vorstellung und trotzdem bekommt er natürlich eine. Der letzte Meistertrainer des VSV, die Legende namens Greg Holst, jetzt mir gegenüber. Coach Holst, schön, dass du dir die Zeit nimmst.
Guten Abend, Martin. Gut, danke.
Coach, du bist jetzt seit ein paar Tagen wieder in Österreich. Wie waren so die ersten paar Tage? Wie war es, sich wieder neu einleben zu müssen?
Well, ich bin gekommen vor 4-5 Tagen. Meine ersten 3-4 Tage war ein bisschen hektisch, weil ich habe kein Auto gehabt. Die Wohnung hat gepasst. Ich habe das selbst organisiert. Ich habe kein Handy gehabt, ich habe kein Internet gehabt, kein Kabel. Und das war ein bisschen hektisch, aber es war eine gute Erfahrung, weil früher, wenn ich Trainer war oder Spieler, war alles organisiert, alles gut vorbereitet. So das war ein bisschen ein neues Erlebnis. Ich war oft bei McDonald's, ich glaube 14, 15 Mal, weil da war mein Wi-Fi, meine eigene Chance, Kontakt mit Leuten zu machen. Und ich habe Stammplatz jetzt in McDonald's. Aber es war ein schöner Tag, spät Nachmittag, war ich im Stadt, viele Leute, ich habe Bier getrunken, es war wirklich eine schöne Zeit. Ein bisschen Hektik, aber jetzt passt alles.
Wir drehen das Rad der Zeit ein wenig zurück. Lockdown mussten wir alle durchgehen. Wie war deine Lockdown-Erfahrung?
Well, das Lockdown ist sicher nicht angenehm für die ganze Welt. Es ist so überraschend gekommen. Und ich war eigentlich in Florida für 2 Monate. Und auf einmal, ich habe gehört, das Virus kommt und das Covid kommt. Und ich habe es gefolgt. Und sie haben gesagt, ich muss zurück nach Kanada gehen, ziemlich schnell. So, ich habe meinen Koffer gepackt und Mitte März bin ich zurück nach Kanada geflogen. Quarantäne gemacht, 14 Tage, weil ich musste spazieren in den Bergen allein. Das war eine ganz komische Zeit. Leider ist es passiert für alle, nicht nur mir. Das macht viel Druck auf viele Leute und ich hoffe, dass es bald besser wird.
Wir geben Hörerinnen und Hörern im Rahmen dieses Podcasts auch immer die Gelegenheit, Fragen zu stellen. Und einer hat das gemacht, Toni Weich nämlich, der wollte wissen, was denn deine Highlights der Summer School oder der Hockey School in Summerland, British Columbia waren. Was hat es generell erst einmal damit auf sich, mit dieser Hockey School?
Well, nach meiner Laufbahn, ich war ungefähr 40 Jahre alt. Ich war in Montreal gewohnt und dann bin ich nach British Columbia, British Columbia, umgezogen. Und ich habe gesagt, okay, was mache ich jetzt? Eishockey ist vorbei. Ich habe angefangen in der Früh von 6 bis 8, 2 Stunden am Eis mit Kindern technisch arbeiten vor der Schule. Weil so machen sie das daheim. Das hat sich gut entwickelt, von 5 oder 6 Kindern auf 40. Dann habe ich gedacht, mache ich Eishockey-Schule. Und habe ich einen super Platz gefunden, ungefähr 45 Minuten von Kelowna entfernt. Eisfläche, Platz zum Schlafen, gucken, alles dabei, ein super Platz. Und ich habe Eishockey-Schule gemacht. Das erste Jahr war 4 Wochen, die ersten 6, 7 Jahre 4 Wochen und dann verkürzt auf 2 Wochen und die letzten 3, 4 Jahre auf 1 Woche. Super Erlebnis, Eishockey pur, 20 Stunden am Eis jede Woche. Super Erinnerung von den ganzen Spielern. Die ersten paar 5, 6 Jahre, die Spieler waren sehr stressig, gescheit, tough, harte Nüsse. Wir haben so hart trainiert. Aber über die Jahre, ich habe gesehen, wie die Kinder sich ändern. So, ich habe mein Training ändern müssen. Vom 1-2 Kondition auf 1-6 Pause, mehr technisch. Das mit den Handys. Die Handys, Cellphones waren wirklich ein großes Problem. So, ich habe alle 50 Handys genommen, weil 50 Kinder haben dort geschlafen. Und sie haben die Handys nur eine Stunde gehabt am Tag, was schwer war für die Kinder. Ein paar Highlights habe ich schon gehabt. Ein guter Freund von mir, sein Sohn ist ein super Spieler. Und unser letzter Spieltag war Samstag in der Früh, alle Eltern da, viele Zuschauer. War eine tolle Endung. Und hat auf einmal in diesem letzten Spiel, und ist ein ganz großer Spieler, ganz lange. Und hat auf einmal einen Alleingang bekommen und hat ein super Tor geschossen. Und hat wirklich gejubelt. Und alles war komplett still. Und hat nie gewusst, warum. Ist auf die falsche Richtung gegangen und hat auf das eigene Tor geschossen. So, das war überraschend. Viel Spaß danach. Aber nachher war gedraftet NHL, AHL gespielt und hat eine gute Karriere gehabt. Ein anderes Mal, ich habe einen ganz kleinen Spieler gehabt von Amerika, vom USA, ich glaube Seattle. Ganz kleine, aber so technisch gut. Er war 10 oder 11 Jahre alt. Finalspiel, super Ending, Overtime, here we go. Und im Tor war unser Tormann-Trainer. Und er war auch noch ein Profi-Spieler, ein paar Jahre später. Und er hat den letzten Penalty gehabt, das kleine Spieler, und er hat so eine schöne Haken gemacht. Top Shelf, unter der Stange, die Leute gejubelt, alle am Eis. Good time, have a great summer. Good memory.
Jetzt wirst du im kommenden Herbst für Puls24 als Experte agieren. Wie bist du dazu gekommen, dass du Experte wirst?
Well, überraschend, einen Tag habe ich einen Anruf bekommen, was meine Pläne waren für diesen Winter. Ich sagte, ja, das kann sein, dass ich komme nach Villach zurück, nach Österreich zurück. Meine Kinder wohnen in Tirol. Und ich habe gesagt, ja, das ist möglich. Bist du interessiert, oder ein Casting zu machen für diese Puls Sport Fernsehen? Ich sagte, ja, okay. So, wir haben ein Casting gemacht durch Zoom, weil Europa, Kanada ist nicht so einfach. Und wir haben ein Zoom-Casting gemacht, was ziemlich gut gegangen ist. Und ich habe gewartet, sie waren sehr interessiert. Dann habe ich gedacht, okay, kann ich kommen oder nichts, wegen Covid, ist es möglich, Wohnung, was muss passen, alles. Und es hat funktioniert. Jetzt bin ich in Wien momentan. Ist alles in Villach organisiert und es freut mich wirklich mit der Zusammenarbeit mit dir, Martin, und mit Welser und Terry und alle. Und ich glaube, wir werden sicher viel Spaß haben.
Du hast schon angesprochen, du bist in einem ExpertInnen-Trio mit Terry Honig, mit Daniel Welser. Wie wirst du versuchen, deine Rolle als Experte anzulegen?
Well, sicher objektiv anschauen, das Ganze. Was wichtig ist für mich, Nummer 1, ist positiv zu sein. Du kannst Eishockey oder Leben nicht verkaufen, wenn du negativ bist. Es gibt sicher Sachen, was negativ sind, und du kannst es diskutieren. Aber positiv ist 90%, negativ ist 10%. So möchte ich leben, Privatleben, Eishockey auch. Was ganz, ganz wichtig ist, dass ich ehrlich bin, was ich sehe, auch wenn es manche Leute nicht passt. Das ist meine Meinung. Ehrlichkeit, positiv sein und natürlich viel Spaß dabei haben.
Schon angesprochen, es gibt User, die großen Wissensdurst haben und Fragen an dich richten. Alex Buch hat das auch getan. Der will wissen, wie es denn 1978 für dich war, als Spieler der Rangers direkt nach Innsbruck zu kommen. Beschreib doch mal diesen drastischen Tapetenwechsel von der riesigen Großstadt ins kleine, beschauliche Innsbruck.
Okay, mein erster Tag, ich habe einen 2-Jahr-Vertrag Angebot gehabt von New York, weil ich habe nur 11 Spiele gespielt, aber sie waren interessiert, dass ich weiter spiele. Und ich habe gedacht, ich sollte einen One-Way-Vertrag bekommen. Es war 60.000 NHL, 20.000 American League. Und ich habe gedacht, ich sollte einen One-Way bekommen, aber was nicht der Fall war. Und ich bin fast in Mannheim gelandet. In den letzten Minuten bin ich nach Innsbruck gekommen. Mein ersten Tag, Mittag, stehe ich auf. Maria Theresia Straße, ich schaue die Berge an. Ich sage, oh Maria, das ist schön hier. Und meine Modus, meine Jeans waren so groß, bell bottoms. Und ich habe gedacht, und alle haben enge Socken angehabt. Ich habe gedacht, ich war die Einzige mit einem guten Stil. So teppet war ich. Und dann bin ich umgegangen, spazieren ein bisschen da neben der Sparkasse und Downtown. Und Leute gehen vorbei, nicht alle, aber öfter höre ich, sie reden mit mir über etwas. Und sie sagen, Mahlzeit. Was haben diese Leute für ein Problem hier? Die reden alle, ich habe geschaut, ob mein Reißverschluss beim Hoseofen ist, die lachen über meine Kleidung. Ja, was ist los hier? Mahlzeit. Okay, dann war ich ein bisschen aggressiv, weil ich bin ein bisschen emotionell. I said, hey, what's your problem? Nachher habe ich jemanden gefragt und sie gesagt, hey, they're saying good appetite. Mahlzeit, Mittagessen. I said, oh Maria. So das war interessant. Und nachher am Eis, das war wirklich, war nur 2 Ausländer, Paul Popil, Ex-NHL-Spieler, und ich. So die Eishockey war natürlich in 78 ganz anders wie NHL oder American League. So ich glaube, in meinem ersten Training habe ich ein paar Tore geschossen oder mehrere. Aber dann habe ich viel Spaß mit den Spielern gehabt. Ich habe eine andere gute Geschichte, darf ich das sagen. Natürlich. Noch eine von meinen, damals haben wir Schweizer gehabt, ein Burkhardt, ein guter, harter, super Eishockeyspieler, harte Nüsse, aber top Leute in die frühen Zeiten. So wir gehen aus hier für ein großes Bier, 4, 5 Leute. Bei der Ecke so gibt es eine kleine Stadion, Bar. Ich bestelle ein großes Bier, alle ein großes Bier und dann der Kurt Mitter hat ein großes Bier bestellt und dann hat so eine Stange drinnen drin, ein Bierwarmer. Ich sage, was tut er in sein Bier? Ja, er tut es in sein Bier, weil das Bier ist zu kalt. Er tut sein Bier warmen. Ich sage, holy shit, was ist das für ein Land? Weil in Kanada wir trinken kaltes Bier. Das war Nummer 1. I'm going, okay. Dann, ich sitze da, ein bisschen Jause kommt. Und ich konnte es nicht glauben, aber da kommt ein kleiner Teller mit Honig. So weißer Honig, harter Honig. Mit Brot. Und ich sagte, boah, das ist eine komische Kultur. Warmes Bier und Honig. Ich sagte, okay, ich nehme ein bisschen mit. Normal esse ich kein Honig mit Bier. Ich nehme ein bisschen von diesem Honig, ich tue es auf mein Brot, im Mund. Ich sage, oh Maria, das ist nicht Honig, das ist Fett. Das ist Schmalz. Bah! Ich sage, was ist das für Essen? Und die haben alle gelacht. Ich sage, oh, it's bacon fat. Ja, bist du deppert. Ich habe so gelacht, sie haben alle gelacht. Und ich sage, hey, I need another big beer, let's go. Und das war mein erster Bier in Innsbruck.
Okay, das würde ich durchaus als Kulturschock bezeichnen.
Kulturschock, yes.
Wir haben im vorigen Interview, das wir auf Englisch geführt haben, auch schon über dein legendäres Interview gesprochen. Auf YouTube hat das bald 170.000 Klicks. Wie gut findest du, ist das Interview gealtert?
Well, erstens, das war nicht geplant. Das ist einfach passiert damals. Und ich bin eigentlich überrascht, dass so vieles anschauen. Aber wenn ich jetzt zurückschaue oder jedes anschaue, ist es, damals war nicht lustig, aber jetzt ist es lustig. Daheim haben sie reden immer noch darüber. Ich arbeite mit Neukindern in der Schule daheim. Und sie schauen alle das Video an, immer noch. Und das ist, ich glaube, 14 Jahre her. Und sie haben das ein paar Leute auf ihre Handys gehabt und ein paar jetzt. Meine Mutter hat eine T-Shirt. Meine Mutter ist fast 90. Und dort steht drauf, mein Kopf mit fucking absolut drauf. So, das ist, ich weiß nicht, ob sie stolz war oder nicht, aber sie hat wirklich viel gelacht. Aber es ist, wie es ist. Es ist komischerweise, ich habe 19 Jahre Profi gespielt. Ich war Long-Trainer, U18, U20, VLAG. Und die Leute reden fast über nur eins und das ist mein Video. So, das ist eigentlich eine lustige Geschichte. Und
ich habe es im englischen Teil dieses Interviews schon versprochen, wir werden uns irgendwann die Zeit nehmen, eine komplette Folge von Hockey O'Clock nur diesem Interview zu widmen, was davor passiert ist, währenddessen, beziehungsweise dann auch vor allem danach. Eine letzte Frage habe ich noch und die beschäftigt sich dann doch auch mit dem sportlichen Aspekt der Battered Home Eishockey League. Du verfolgst natürlich auch das Geschehen und das wird sich die nächsten Tage und Wochen nur noch intensivieren. Aber gibt's eine Beobachtung, vielleicht auch einen Transfer, der dir ins Auge gestochen ist, etwas, das für dich herausragt?
Ja, ich habe jetzt ein bisschen überall geschaut, was für Spieler kommen. Nicht so intensiv, weil etwas, was ich wirklich gesehen habe, was ich überrascht war, ich habe gefragt, ja, wo geht Schofield? Weil ich habe gesehen, dass war nicht auf der Kader von Linz. Und ich habe gesagt, nein, er ist in Salzburg. Ich war wirklich überrascht, weil wenn ich in 2015 vielleicht die erste Mannschaft übernommen habe, überraschend, war Schofield nicht nur ein Top-Spieler für uns, er war absolut professionell in der Kabine, er war super, ein super Spieler zum haben für den ganzen Verein. Er hat mir viel geholfen, hat der Kabine geholfen. Und ich glaube, Salzburg hat einen sehr guten Kauf gemacht, weil ich glaube, sie haben viele junge Spieler heuer. Sie fangen an mit vielen jungen Spielern. Und das ist ein Transfer. Ich war wirklich überrascht, aber für Salzburg ein sehr guter Kauf.
Alright, das wird nicht das letzte Mal gewesen sein, Coach, dass wir von dir gehört haben. Ich sage danke einstweilen, danke fürs ausführliche Zeitnehmen in 2 Sprachen.
Ja, danke. Danke vielmals. Bis nächstes Mal, Martin.
Das war also Greg Holst und das war's mit Hockey O'Clock mit Martin Pfanner für diese Woche. Kommende Woche gibt's die letzten beiden Teile des großen Hockey O'Clock Thomas Koch Spezials. In einem Teil geht's um seine Karriere im ÖEHV-Nationalteam und so viel sei vorweggenommen. Da gibt es auch eine Geschichte von Greg Holst über Thomas Koch und der letzte Teil beschäftigt sich dann mit der Legende namens Thomas Koch. Den nächsten regulären Hockey O'Clock mit Martin Pfanner Podcast gibt's dann in 2 Wochen, dann auch wieder mit Gästen, dann unter anderem mit Ex-VSV-Trainer Rob Down.
Gerne mehr davon.